the YouTube link should be working now. So we'll confirm.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
Hey, Jillian and Alexis.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Let me connect to my.
Look at all of our faces studiously looking at the screen. It's great.
I'm feeling so like it's warming my heart just seeing everyone's faces right now. So I'm just kind of basking in it.
I agree. So great. Faces studiously looking at the screen.
Okay, what is going on with my eye?
I just got a message from you, Genevieve, saying you've got the spinning wheel of death. What's going on? You look good from my end.
Oh my God. Okay.
You're good.
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay. So it really just doesn't want to use my AirPods, I guess. Give me 30 seconds. I'm going to grab my other headphones.
No worries. We're not all here yet. Hey, Georgia.
For those of us who are here, if you want to change your name to whatever character or characters you're reading for, that might be helpful.
Some have already done that.
Oh, I'm so sweaty. Okay.
Alex. Hey, Alex.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Yay.
Yay, yay.
Are we just waiting for one more? Is it
I have
Jeanette?
Morgan here without our video on, right? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Just
Yeah, I see you
saying
now. Yeah, that's good. I had to see non-video participants in order to see that. Great. Oh, there's Barry. Yeah. Shailin, do we have Shailin? I think we're just waiting for one, Andrea.
Okay, great.
Or as I like to call you, Andrea. Yeah, this one more. Oh, there she is. Good. Another non-video participant. There she is. Hello. Good. I think we're all here.
Cool, great.
Turn it over to you.
Sure, we'll get started. I wrote a bit of an introduction for each of you all. So thanks everyone, like obviously, first of all, for participating. I'm very, very excited to hear you all read this really excellent play. before we start, I want to really encourage you guys to, if you can, go find like an actual copy of the play. It's really worth like poring over. There's so much beautiful language in there, and there's so many things to like really dig into. And even just for that introduction, for those of you who are reading, I sent along some pictures of it, but it just gives such great context and background for looking at this work. I think Franzen does a really good translation and introduction to it. For example, something I found really useful that he, and a lot of his introduction is also influenced the one that I'm giving to you now. Especially that one part where he talks about Wedekind's personal life growing up. So he was raised in what would have been considered a fairly progressive household for the time. His father was known very politically for being quite radical in that time. And even later when he grew up, he would also identify with a lot of art and ideas that really pushed the bounds of whatever society he was living in. And he really considered himself to be quite a staunch and radical atheist. Even later when he was raising his own children, he was really unique, I would say even by today's standards, because he treated them with a really great respect, and he spoke to them with the same kind of directness as he would adults. I think that's really reflected, all of that's really reflected in this really godless world that Wedekind creates for his really deeply complex and mature children in Spring Awakening. And it seems to really take note of his own personal experiences. Spring Awakening, of course, deals with so many different kinds of themes, most obvious being sex and sexuality, repression, systems, and society. But the one that I've always really found the most interesting is education. When you look at what these kids talk about, even amongst themselves, when they're talking about school and whatnot, you can really see the academic rigor that these children are put through before they're even through their teenage years. The way that they drop references to history, mathematics, philosophy, art, classical studies shows a really well-roundedness that you don't even find in university students today, I would say. I was talking to my roommate, Gabe, who majored in classical studies in Greek at U of T, about this verb that is mentioned later in the play. I think, I can't remember which of the children mentions it, but anyways, I asked him if he knew what it meant, and he's like, oh gosh, no. And when he went to go ask his professor, he told him that it was of such complexity that like the professor doesn't even really deal with it very often. It's really contrasted, all this high level thinking is really contrasted so strikingly against the severe ignorance that these children have of their own bodies. It's absolutely absurd to think that an animal could know so much of the higher things and of the good life, but know nothing of the point of life, biologically speaking anyways. And it's this kind of absurdity, along with the jokes peppered throughout the play, that justifies Wedekind when he claims that this play in many ways is kind of a comedy, or at least a tragic comedy, as Franzen points out. Hunshin's monologue, I think, is my favorite example of this. He takes it with such gravity, the thing that he's struggling with, but it's so silly, it's so normal, it's so natural. The fact that he sees it as such a problem sees it as such an overblown way is kind of funny. And I think that Franzen puts it really well when he describes it as the laughability of adolescent sorrows, or the sorrows of adolescent laughability. I think Spring Awakening is more famous for its Broadway musical adaptation, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, but I actually really prefer the play myself. I think the musical, again, as Franzen also points out, really markets itself on the fun teen sex aspect, but doesn't really give it the struggles the same gravity that the play does. And I think the play really witnesses those struggles that these children are dealing with. And as absurd as it might seem, there are a lot of people who still deal with that same level of ignorance and struggle, who think that, a prayer is just as good as a condom. And that's terrible and that's sad. And so I think this play is just a really interesting observation of that. And I think the language that Franzen gives these children to use is incredible. And I appreciate so much the depth and complexity with which he gives them. And so with that, let's read this play. Act 1, Scene 1, a living room.
Why did you make me such a long dress, Mother?
It's your 14th birthday.
If I'd known you'd make my dress so long, I wouldn't have wanted to be 14.
This dress is not too long, Vendla. What do you want me to do? Can I help it if my baby is 2 inches taller every spring? Now that you're a grown-up girl, you can't expect to go out in a pinafore.
At least my pinafore looks better on me than this bathrobe. Please let me keep wearing it, just for the summer. This sackcloth is going to fit me the same whether I'm 14 or 15. Let's put it away till my next birthday. I'd only be stepping on the hem and tearing it.
I don't know what to say to you. I'd love to keep you just the way you are, baby. Other girls your age are skinny and gawky. You're the opposite. Who knows what you'll be like when the others are fully developed?
Who knows? Maybe I won't be around anymore.
Baby, where do you get those ideas?
Mommy, don't be sad.
Oh, my dearest darling.
I get them at night when I can't fall asleep. I don't feel sad at all, and I know I'll sleep all the better then. Mother, is it sinful to think about things like that?
Go and hang the sackcloth in the closet. Put your pinafore back on, for heaven's sake. When I have a chance, I'll sew a ruffle on the bottom.
No, in that case, I'd rather Joel go ahead and be 20.
No, just as long as you don't get too cold. That little dress used to be plenty long for you, but...
Now, when it's almost summer? Oh, Mother, even children don't get diphtheria on the back of their knees. You're such a worrier. A person doesn't get cold at my age, your legs least of all. Would it be better if I got too hot, Mother? You can thank the good Lord if your dearest darling doesn't cut her sleeves off one of these mornings and run into you some evening in the twilight without any shoes and socks on. When I wear my sackcloth, I'm going to be dressed like a fairy queen underneath. Don't get angry, Mummy. No one will ever know it then.
Scene 2, Sunday evening.
This is too boring. I'm going to quit.
Then the rest of us will have to stop too. Have you done the homework, Melchior?
Keep playing.
Where are you going?
For a walk.
Getting awfully dark.
Have you done the homework already?
Why shouldn't I go for a walk in the dark?
Central America, Louis XV, 60 lines of Homer, 7 equations.
Oh, damn this homework.
Only the Latin paper wasn't due tomorrow, too.
There's nothing you can think about without homework getting in the way.
I'm going home.
Me too, I've got homework.
Me too.
Good night, Melchior.
Keep well. What I'd like to know is, what are we doing in this world anyway?
As far as school is concerned, I'd rather be a cab horse. What do we go to school for? We go to school so they can give us exams? And what do they give us exams for? So we can flunk. 7 of us have to flunk, if only because the upstairs classroom doesn't hold more than 60. I felt so peculiar since Christmas. I swear to God, if it weren't for my dad, I'd pack a bag tonight and go to Altona Harbor.
Let's talk about something else.
You see the black cat there with its tail in the air?
Do you believe in omens?
I'm not sure. It came from over there. It doesn't mean anything.
This is a tribtus that I think everyone falls into if they manage to escape the Scylla of religious superstition. Let's sit down here under the beech tree. There's a warm spring wind blowing over the mountains. I'd like to be a young dryad now and spend the whole night long up there in the woods, swinging and rocking in the highest treetops.
Unbutton your vest, Melchior.
Ha! The way it makes your clothes puff out.
God, it's getting so pitch dark you can't even see your hand in front of your face. In fact, where are you? Don't you agree, Melchior, that a human being's sense of shame is merely a product of his upbringing?
I was just giving this some thought the other day before yesterday. No matter what, the feeling does seem to be deeply rooted in human nature. Imagine you're supposed to take off all your clothes in front of your best friend. You wouldn't do it unless he was doing it himself at the same time. I guess it's more or less a fashion thing.
I've been thinking that when I have children, little boys and girls, I'm going to start them out sleeping in the same room, if possible in the very same bed, and have them help each other get dressed and undressed every morning and every night. And when the weather's hot, both the girls and the boys are not going to wear anything all day except short white woolen tunics with leather belts. It seems to me that if they grow up like this, then later on they're bound to be more relaxed than we are, as a rule.
That's definitely my opinion, Moritz. The only question is, what happens when the girls start having babies?
What do you mean having babies?
Well, in this regard, I believe in certain instincts. I believe, for example, that if you take a male cat and a female cat and you shut them up together while they're still young, and you keep the two of them isolated from all contact from the outside world, that is, if you leave them entirely to their own inclinations, that sooner or later the female is going to get pregnant. And even though neither she nor the male had anyone whose example they could follow.
I guess with animals, it just eventually happens.
All the more so with people is what I think. Listen, Moritz, if your boys are sleeping in the very same bed with the girls and all of a sudden they feel their first masculine stirrings, I'll bet you anything.
You might be right about that. But still.
And when your girls reach the proper age, it will be exactly the same with them. Not that a girl is quite, there's obviously no telling that. Still, it's reasonable to assume, and you can count on curiosity to play its part as well.
One question, by the way.
Yes?
You're sure you'll answer?
Of course.
Promise?
Cross my heart. Yes, Moritz?
Have you done the essay yet?
Come on, spit it out. Nobody's listening. No one can see us.
It goes without saying that my children would have to be working all day in the lawn and garden, or amusing themselves with games that entailed physical exertion. They would have to ride, climb, do gymnastics, and above all, not sleep on soft beds at night like we do. We're terribly soft. I don't think you dream at all if you sleep on a hard bed.
For now, until after the harvest, I'm not sleeping in anything but my hammock. I put my bed behind the stove. It folds up. Last winter, I had a dream where I whipped our Lolo till he couldn't move a single limb. That was the most horrible thing I ever dreamed. Why are you giving me that funny look?
Have you already been feeling them?
What?
How did you put it?
Masculine stirrings.
Mm-hmm.
I sure have.
Me too.
It's been going on for quite a while, in fact. Almost a year now.
It hit me like a bolt of lightning.
You've been dreaming.
But only very briefly. Some about legs and turquoise tights that were trying. It's more accurate to say I thought they were trying to climb over the podium at school. I only saw them for a second.
Georg Zerchnitz dreamt about his mother.
He told you that?
Over on Gallows Hill.
If you knew what I've suffered since that night.
Pangs of guilt.
Pangs of guilt. Fear of death.
Good Lord.
I thought I was incurable. I thought I was suffering from some internal injury. The only thing that finally calmed me down was when I started to write my memoirs. Yes, my dear Melchior, the last 3 weeks were a Gethsemane for me.
When it happened to me, I was more or less prepared for it. I felt a little ashamed, but that was all.
And you're almost a full year younger than me, too.
That, Moritz, I wouldn't worry about. To the best of my knowledge, there's no definite age limit for the first appearance of these phantoms. You know the big Lammermuir kid with the straw blonde hair and the hooked nose? He's 3 years older than me. According to Hansi Rillo, he still doesn't dream about anything except sponge cake and apricot jelly.
Oh, please, how can Hansi Rillo know a thing like that?
You asked him?
He asked him? I wouldn't dare ask anybody.
You asked me?
God, you're right. It's possible that Hansley already had his will drawn up. Truly a strange game they play with us. And we're supposed to be grateful? I don't remember ever feeling a longing for this kind of emotional turmoil. Why couldn't they have let me sleep in peace until everything was quiet again? My dear parents could have had 100 better children than me. And now I've come, I don't know how, and I'm supposed to be responsible for not having stayed away? Have you ever wondered yourself, Melchior, how we actually landed in this whirlpool?
You mean you still don't know, Moritz?
How can I be expected to know? I see how chickens lay eggs. I hear that supposedly my mother carried me under her heart, but is that all there is to it? I can also remember that even when I was 5 years old, I was embarrassed whenever someone turned up the Queen of Hearts with her décolletage. I don't get that feeling anymore, but now there's hardly a girl I can talk to without thinking some abominable thing. And I swear to you, Melchior, I don't know what.
I'll tell you all about it. I've gotten some of it from books, some of it from illustrations, and some of it from my observations of nature. You'll be surprised. It immediately made an atheist of me. I told Georg Zertsnitz too. Georg Zertsnitz wanted to tell Hansi Rillo, but Hansi Rillo had already learned it from his governess when he was little.
I went through Mayer's Abridged from A to Z. Words, nothing but words and words, not one single straightforward explanation. Oh, the sense of shame. What's the use of an encyclopedia that doesn't answer the most obvious questions about your life?
Have you ever seen two dogs running across the street?
No. You better not tell me anything today, Melchior. I still have Central America and Louis XV hanging over my head. Plus 60 lines of Homer, the 7 equations, the Latin paper. I'd be falling on my butt all day again tomorrow. The only way I know how to grind is to be as dull as an ox.
Just come back to my room with me. In 42 minutes, I'll have the Homer, the equations, and 2 papers. I'll mix a couple of minor mistakes in yours, and you're all set. Mama will make us some lemonade, and we'll have a nice, cozy talk about reproduction.
I can't have a nice, cozy talk about reproduction. If you want to do me a favor, you can give me your information in writing. Write down everything you know for me, make it as short and clear as you can, and stick it between my books during gym tomorrow. I'll take it home without knowing I have it. At some point, I'll come across it unexpectedly. I'll have no choice but to glance through it with a weary eye. If it's absolutely unavoidable, you might also add a couple of illustrations.
You're like a girl. Anything you say, though. It's the only work that completely interests me. One question, Lawrence. Have you ever seen a girl?
Yes.
Completely, though.
Totally.
So have I. The illustrations won't be necessary then.
During the school marches in Lilic's Anatomical Museum, if I'd been caught, they would have thrown me out of school, as pretty as the light of day. And, oh, so lifelike.
Last summer, I was with Mama in Frankfurt. You're leaving already, Moritz.
I've got homework. Good night.
See you later.
Scene 3. Thea, Venla, and Marta are coming up the street arm in arm.
The way the water gets in your shoes.
The way the wind whistles around your cheeks.
The way your heart pounds.
Let's go out to the bridge. Ilse said the river's full of trees and bushes. The boys have a raft on the water. I heard Melky Gabor almost drowned last night.
Oh, he can swim.
Oh, you can say that again, girl.
If he couldn't swim, he'd have drowned for sure.
Your braid's coming out, Martha. Your braid's coming out.
So let it come out. It annoys me every hour of the day. I can't wear my hair short like you. I can't wear it loose like Vendla. I can't have bangs. Even at home, I have to keep it up, all because of my aunts.
I'll bring some scissors to confirmation class tomorrow. You can be saying, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked," and I'll cut it off.
For God's sake, Vendla. Papa will beat me to a pulp, and Mama will lock me in the coal cellar for 3 nights.
What does he hit you with, Martha?
Sometimes I think they'd feel like something was missing if they didn't have a nasty little brat like me.
No.
Weren't you allowed to run a sky blue ribbon through the yoke of your chemise?
Pink satin. Pink looks good on me with my pitch black eyes.
Blue looked so cute on me. Mama dragged me out of bed by my braids. I fell on the floor with my hands out like this. You see, Mama prays with us every night.
If I were you, I would have run away a long time ago.
There you have it. That's what she's up to. There you have it. But we'll see about that. Oh, we'll see about that. At least she'll never have her mother to blame.
Whoa.
Can you imagine what Mama meant by that, Taya?
Not me. You, Vendela?
I would have just asked her.
I lay on the floor and screamed and howled. Then Papa comes in. Rip! Off comes my chemise. I'm out the door. There you have it. She wants to go on the street like that now.
That can't be true, Martha.
I was freezing. I opened the door. I had to sleep in a gunny sack all night.
I couldn't sleep in a sack to save my life.
I'd be very happy to sleep in your sack for you sometime.
As long as a person doesn't get beaten.
But you could suffocate in there.
Well, your head stays out. The sack gets tied under your chin.
And they beat you?
No, only if there's something special.
What do they hit you with, Martha?
With? I don't know. All sorts of things. Does your mother think it's indecent to eat a slice of bread in bed?
No.
Can't help thinking that they do have their fun, even if they never talk about it. When I have children, I'm going to let them grow up like weeds out in our flower garden. Nobody pays any attention to them, and they're so tall, so thick. And meanwhile, the roses on their stakes in their planting boxes get scrawnier every summer.
When I have children, I'm going to dress them all in pink. Pink hats, pink skirts, pink shoes, only the stockings as black as night. Then when I go out for a walk, I'll have them march along. What about you, Vendela?
So you already know you're going to have some?
Why shouldn't we have some?
It's true that Aunt Euphemia doesn't have any.
Yeah, because she isn't married, you stupid goose.
My Aunt Barris was married 3 times and didn't have a single one.
What would you want, Vendela, if you had some? Boys or girls?
Boys.
I want boys too.
Me too. Better 20 boys than 3 girls.
Those are so boring.
If I hadn't turned out to be a girl, I definitely wouldn't want to become one now.
Well, I think that's a matter of taste, Martha. Every day, I think how happy I am to be a girl. Believe me, I wouldn't trade places with the son of a king. But that's why I only want boys.
That's ridiculous. Completely ridiculous, Vendela.
But surely it must be 1,000 times more uplifting to be loved by a man than a girl.
You can't possibly mean to say that Assistant Forest Commissioner loves Melita more than she loves him.
That's exactly what I mean, Thea. Folly is proud. Folly is proud of being the Assistant Forest Commissioner because Folly doesn't have anything. Melita is blissful because what she gets is 10,000 times more than what she is.
Aren't you proud of yourself, Vendela?
That would be silly.
How proud I'd be if I were you.
Just look at the way she puts her feet down, the way she looks straight ahead, the way she carries herself, Martha. If that isn't pride.
But why? I'm just so happy if I'm a girl. If I wasn't a girl, I'd kill myself so the next time
He has a wonderful head.
That's how I picture the young Alexander when he was studying with Aristotle.
My God, Greek history. All I can remember is how Socrates was lying in a barrel when Alexander sold him the ass's shadow.
They say he's number 3 in his class.
Professor Brockenbone says he could be number 1 if he wanted to.
He's got a nice forehead, but his friend has more soulful eyes.
More to stifle? Of all the dopes?
I've always gotten along very well with him.
Every time you come near him, he makes you look like an idiot. All the children's ball the Rillos gave, he offered me some chocolates. Wendela, imagine, they were all soft and warm. Isn't that? He said that he had kept them in his pocket too long.
Imagine this. Melky Gabor told me at the party that there's nothing he believes in anymore. Not God, not a hereafter, nothing in the world at all.
Scene 4. The park in front of the school. Melchior, Otto, Georg, Robert, Konchen, and Lemmermere.
Do any of you know where Mort Stiefel is?
He's in trouble. Boy, is he in trouble.
Kids that play with matches get their fingers burned.
I sure as hell wouldn't want to be where he is now.
The shamelessness, the incredible gall.
What are you talking about?
What are we talking about? Hey, I'll tell you.
I don't want to be the one who talked.
Me neither. No way.
I'm giving you 5 seconds.
Simply put, Mort Stifle got into the conference room.
The conference room.
The conference room. Right after Latin.
He was the last one out. He hung back on purpose.
I was halfway around the corner when I saw him open the door.
What the hell you say?
He'll be lucky not to land in hell himself.
The administration must have left the key in the door.
Or Mort Stifle has a skeleton key.
I wouldn't put it past him.
He'll get at least attention.
And a note on his report card.
If it's not already full of Fs.
There he is.
Why does a sheet?
Moritz, what have you done?
Nothing. Nothing.
You're feverish.
With happiness, with bliss, with jubilation.
They caught you?
I passed! Melchior, I passed! Oh, now the world can end. I passed. Who would have believed I passed? I read it 20 times. I can't believe it. Sweet God, it was still there. It was still there. I passed. I don't know. I feel so strange. The ground is spinning. Melchior, if you knew what I've been through.
Congratulations, Moritz. Just be glad you got away with it.
You don't know. Hansi, you have no idea what was at stake. For 3 weeks, I've been sneaking past that door like it's the gates of hell. Then today, I noticed it's ajar. I think if you'd offer me $1 million, nothing could have stopped me. I'm standing in the middle of the room. I open the file, turn the pages, find it. And the whole time, it makes me shiver.
The whole time.
And the whole time, the door's wide open behind me. How I got out of there, how I made it down the stairs, I have no idea.
Did Ernst Robel pass too?
Yes, indeed, Hansi, yes, indeed. Ernst Robel also passed.
Then you can't have read it right. Not counting the idiots. There's 61 of us, including you and Robel, and the classroom upstairs doesn't hold more than 60.
I read it perfectly right. Not counting Ernest Robel's getting moved up the same as me. Both of us, provisionally, of course, to begin with. During the first quarter, they'll see which of us has to make way for the other. Poor Robel. God knows I'm not worried about myself anymore. I've been too close to the edge for that.
I bet you 5 marks you don't make it.
You're broke. I don't want to wipe you out. From now on, I'm going to grind like hell. I can say it now. You can take it or leave it. Nothing matters now. I know how true it is. If I hadn't passed, I would have shot myself.
Show off.
Chicken.
I wish I'd been there to see it.
What do you want to bet? A sock in the mouth?
Come on, Moritz. Let's go to the Ranger's hut.
You mean that you believe that drivel?
What's it to you? Let them talk, Moritz. Go. Let's go. Let's get out of town.
Professor Starber and Professor Brokenbone pass by.
That's the best of my pupils can be attracted precisely to the very worst, my dear colleague, is incomprehensible to me.
Me as well, my dear colleague.
Scene 5. A sunny afternoon. Melchior and Venla meet in the woods.
Is it really you, Venla? What are you doing up here by yourself? I've been roving around in the woods for 3 hours without meeting a soul, and now suddenly I see you coming out of the thickest underbrush.
Yes, it's me.
If I didn't know you were Venla Bergman, I think you were a dryad fallen from the boughs.
No, I'm Vendla Bergman. Where did you come from?
I've been pursuing my thoughts.
I'm looking for Woodruff. Mama wants to make May punch. At first she wanted to come along here herself, but Aunt Bowers showed up at the last minute and she doesn't like climbing. So I came here by myself.
Do you have your woodruff yet?
The basket's full of it. Over there under the beech trees, it's thick as clover. As a matter of fact, I'm looking for a way out now. I seem to have gotten turned around. Do you happen to know what time it is?
It's just 3:30. When are they expecting you?
I thought it was later. I lay for a long time in the moss by the creek and dreamed. Time passed so quickly, I was afraid I was getting towards evening.
If they aren't expecting you, let's rest here a little longer. Under the oak tree is my favorite spot. If you lean your head back against the trunk and stare up at the sky through the branches, you get hypnotized. The ground is still warm from the morning sun. There's something I've been wanting to ask you for weeks, Venla.
I have to be home by 5, though.
We'll go together. I'll carry your basket and we'll take the path through the ravine. In 10 minutes, we'll be on the bridge. When you lie here like this with your forehead in your hands, you have strangest thoughts.
What did you want to ask me, Melchior?
I've heard, Venla, that you often visit poor people, that you bring them food and clothes and money too. Do you do this out of your own free will, or does your mother usually send you?
Usually my mother sends me. It's poor working families with scads of children. A lot of times the husbands can't find work and they're cold and hungry. At home, we have all kinds of old stuff lying around in the closet and dresses that don't get used anymore. But what made you think of it?
When your mother sends you to places like that, do you like to go or not?
Oh, I love to go. How can you ask?
The children are dirty. The women are sick. The rooms are full of trash. The men hate you because you don't work.
That's not true, Melchior. And if it were true, I'd go there all the sooner.
What do you mean, all the sooner?
I'd go there all the sooner. It would make me even more happier to help them.
So it's for your own pleasure that you visit poor people.
I visit them because they're poor.
And if it didn't make you happy, you wouldn't go.
Can I help if it makes me happy?
And yet for this, you're supposed to go to heaven. Which means this thing that's been keeping me awake for every night for a month now is true. Can a miser help it if visiting sick, dirty children doesn't make him happy?
I'm sure it would make you happier than anything.
And yet for this, he's supposed to die an eternal death. I'm going to write a treatise and send it to Reverend Wedekind. He's the cause of all this. The trash he feeds us about the joy of self-sacrifice. If he can't give me an answer, I'm going to stop going to Sunday school and I won't get confirmed.
Why make things miserable for your mother and father? Just get confirmed. It's not going to kill you. If there weren't those awful white dresses for us and those trooper pants for you, a person might even be able to get excited about it.
There's no such thing as sacrifice. There's no such thing as selflessness. I watch the good people enjoying the warmth of their hearts. I watch the bad people trembling and groaning. I watch you, Venla Bergman, shaking your curls and laughing, and it makes me feel as stone sober as an outcast. What were you dreaming about, Venla, when you were lying in the grass by the creek?
Stupid things. Foolish things.
With your eyes open?
I dreamed I was a poor, poor beggar girl. I was sent out in the street at 5 in the morning. I had to beg from rude, hard-hearted people all day long, in storms and in bad weather. And if I came home at night shivering with cold and hunger and I didn't have as much money as my father expected, I'd get beaten. Beaten.
I know this kind of thing, Venla. You have those silly children's books to thank for it. Believe me, people as brutal as that don't exist anymore.
But they do, Melchior, you're wrong. Martha Bessel gets beaten every night, and you can see the welts the next day. Oh, what that girl must suffer. Your face gets burning just when you hear her talk about it. I feel so horribly sorry for her sometimes. I have to cry in my pillow in the middle of the night. I've been trying for months to figure out how to help her. I'd be happy to take her place for a whole week sometimes.
Her father should be reported immediately. They take the child away from him.
I, Melchior, have never been beaten in my life, been beaten. Not one single time. I can hardly imagine how it feels to be beaten. I've tried beating myself to see what it does to you. It must be a dreadful thing.
I don't think a child is ever improved by it,
Improved by what?
by being beaten.
With this stick, for example. Huh, it's so tough and thin.
You draw blood with that.
You hit me with it once.
Who?
Me.
What's going into you, Venla?
What's wrong with it?
Just calm down. I'm not going to hit you.
What if I let you?
Never!
But if I ask you to, Melchior?
Are you out of your mind?
I've never been beaten my whole life.
If you can ask for a thing like that,
Please.
I'll teach you to ask.
He hits her.
Oh God, I didn't feel a thing.
Of course not. Through all your skirts.
Well, hit my legs then.
Venla.
He hits her harder.
You're just patting me. You're patting me.
Wait, you witch! I'll whip that Satan right out of you!
Melchior throws the switch aside and flies at her with his fist so violently that she bursts into a terrible scream. He pays no attention, but thrashes her as if enraged, while thick tears run down her cheeks. Suddenly, he jumps up, clutches his temples with both hands, and plunges into the woods, sobbing piteously from the depths of his soul. Act 2, Scene 1. Evening in Melchior's study. The window is open, the lamp on the table is lit. Melchior and Moritz on the sofa.
I'm in good spirits again, just a bit stirred up. During Greek, though, I was sleeping like a drunken Prometheus. I'm amazed that old Fitz's tongue didn't tweak my ears. I came within an inch of being late this morning. The first thing I thought of when I woke up was verbs in me. Christ, hell, God damn it, I conjugated all through breakfast and all the way to school until I was ready to throw up. It must have just been after 3 when I dozed off. The pen made another blot in my book. And when Mathilda woke me up, my lamp was smoking and the blackbirds in the elder bushes outside my window sounded so happy to be alive. I immediately started feeling unspeakably melancholy again. I put on my collar and dragged the brush through my hair. But it feels good when you've accomplished something in spite of yourself.
Can I roll you a cigarette?
Thanks, I don't smoke. If I can only keep it up, I'm going to work and work until my eyes pop out of my head. Ernest Robel's already failed 6 times since spring vacation. 3 times in Greek, twice in Brockenbond's class, and the last time in literature. I myself have only been in that deplorable position 5 times, and from now on, it's not going to happen at all. Robel won't shoot himself. Robel doesn't have parents who are sacrificing everything for him. Whenever he wants to, he can go be a soldier or a cowboy or a sailor. If I flunk out, my father will have a stroke and my mother will end up in the loony bin. A person couldn't survive a thing like that. Before the exam, I prayed to God to give me tuberculosis and let me off the hook. And I got off it, although even now I can sense it hanging in the distance with a glimmering around it that makes me scared to raise my eyes day and night. But now that I'm on the ladder, I'll keep climbing. My guarantee is the logical certainty that I can't fall without breaking my neck.
There's an unexpected nastiness to life. I could see myself hanging in a tree. What's taking Mama with that tea?
Your tea will do me good, Melchior. Honestly, I'm shaking. I feel so peculiarly outside myself. Touch me, would you please? I see, I hear, I feel things much more clearly. And yet everything is so dreamlike. Oh, so atmospheric. The way the lawn stretches out in the moonlight there, so quiet, so deep as if it reaches into eternity. Figures veiled in the crepe come out of the bushes and scurry in breathless haste across the glades and vanish in the twilight. It feels like there's going to be a council meeting under the chestnut tree. Maybe we should go down there, Melchior?
Let's wait till we've had our tea.
The leaves are whispering so busily. It's as if I was hearing my grandmother sit back and tell the story of the queen without a head. There was a fabulously beautiful queen, as beautiful as the sun, more beautiful than all the maidens in the land. Only, unfortunately, she'd been born without a head. She couldn't eat, couldn't drink, couldn't see or laugh or kiss. The only way she could communicate with her court was with her small white hands. With her elegant little feet, she tapped out death sentences and declarations of war. And then one day she was conquered by a king who happened to have two heads, which were always getting in each other's hair and arguing so frantically that neither of them could get a word in edgewise. The chief wizard of the court took the smaller of the two and put it on the queen. And lo and behold, it fit her perfectly. Whereupon the king married the queen, and instead of getting in each other's hair, the two of them kissed each other on the forehead, on the cheeks, and mouth, and lived happily ever after. What garbage! Since the end of the vacation, I haven't been able to get that headless queen out of my head. Whenever I see a pretty girl, I see her without a head, and then suddenly it seems like I'm a headless queen myself. Sometime maybe someone will put another head on me.
Miss Kabor comes in with a steaming tea, which she puts on the table in front of Moritz and Melchior.
Here, kids. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, Mr. Stiefel. How are you?
Thank you, Mrs. Gabor. I'm listening to the dance down there.
You don't look at all well, though. Are you feeling all right?
It's nothing. I've been going to bed on the late side the last few nights.
Can you imagine? He was up all night studying.
You shouldn't do things like that, Mr. Stiefel. You should take care of yourself. Don't neglect your health. School is no substitute for good health. Take brisk walks in the fresh air. That's worth more at your age than memorizing Virgil.
I'll take brisk walks in the fresh air. You're right. You can do your exercises while you're exercising too. Why didn't I think of that myself? But I'd still have to do the written work at home.
You can do the written stuff here with me. It'll make it easier for both of us. You know, don't you, Mama, that Max von Trenck came down with brain fever. At lunchtime today, Hansi Riller came straight from Trenck's deathbed to tell Mr. Heartpain that Trenck had just died while he was with him. Well, said Heartpain, don't you still have 2 hours of detention to do from last week? Here's the slip from the custodian. I want this matter straightened out at once, and the entire class will participate in the funeral. Hansi was stunned.
What book do you have there, Melchior?
Faust.
Have you read it yet?
Not all of it.
Right now we're doing Walpurgis Night.
Well, if I were you, I would have waited another year or two.
Mama, I can't think of any book where I've found so many great things. Why shouldn't I read it?
Because you don't understand it.
You have no way of knowing, Mama. I'm fully aware that I'm not in a position to appreciate the work in all its sublimity.
We always read together. It greatly facilitates our comprehension.
Melchior, you're old enough to know what's good for you and what's bad for you. Do whatever you think you can justify to yourself. I'll be the very first to express my gratitude if you never give me any reason to have to deny you something. I just wanted to call your attention to the fact that even the best things can have harmful effects if a person is not yet equipped with the maturity to properly appreciate them. I will always prefer to place my trust in you rather than in the given educational method. If you need anything else, kids, you come out and call me. Melchior, I'll be in my bedroom.
Your mama meant business with that Gretchen.
Did we spend even 1 minute talking about that?
Faust himself couldn't have dismissed it more cold-bloodedly.
After all, as a work of art, the play doesn't culminate in that one act of infamy. Faust could have promised to marry the girl and then abandoned her. In my eyes, he wouldn't have even been the tiniest bit less guilty. As far as I'm concerned, Gretchen could have died of a broken heart. When you see how convulsively everyone latches onto that one part, you think the whole world revolves around penis and vagina.
To tell you the truth, Melchior, that's exactly the impression I've had since I read your essay. I fell on the floor at the beginning of vacation. I picked up the Surrey of world history. I locked the door and raced through the flickering lines the way a frightened owl flies through a burning forest. I think I read most of it with my eyes closed. Your explanations sounded to me like a series of vague memories, like a song a person used to sing himself when he was little, and then hears again when he's just about to die, and it comes out of someone else's mouth and breaks his heart. The thing that affected me the most was what you wrote about girls. I can't get out of my mind. And believe me, Melchior, it's sweeter to have it's sweeter to have to suffer a wrong than commit one. To have to submit to such a sweet wrong without deserving, it seems to me, the essence of all earthly bliss.
I don't want my bliss to come as charity.
Why not?
I don't want anything I haven't had to fight for.
But is it even pleasure then, Melchior? A girl's pleasure, Melchior, is like the rapture of gods. A girl's natural disposition makes her put up a fight. She keeps herself free from any kind of bitterness right until the last second, so she can suddenly be transported straight to heaven. A girl is still afraid of hell at the very moment she feels a paradise blossoming. Her perceptions are as fresh as a spring that rises up out of a rock. A girl takes hold of a chalice that earthly lips have never touched before, a cup of nectar that flames and sparkles as she drains it. I imagine the satisfaction that a man gets out of this is stale and flat.
Imagine it however you want, but keep it to yourself. I don't like to imagine it.
Scene 2, the living room.
Vendla? Vendla?
What is it, Mother?
Oh, you're up already, baby? My, isn't that nice of you?
You've already been out?
Hurry up and get dressed. You have to run over to Ina's right away. You have to take this basket to her.
You were at Ina's? How is Ina? Still no better?
Just think, Vendla. The stork came last night and brought her a little baby boy.
A boy? A boy! Oh, that's wonderful. That explains the never-ending influenza.
A splendid little boy.
I have to see him, Mother. Now I'm an aunt for the third time. The aunt of a girl and 2 boys.
And what boys they are. That's what happens when you live under the eaves of a church. It'll only be 2 years ago tomorrow that she came down the aisle in her muslin dress.
Were you there when he brought him?
He'd just flown away again. Don't you want to pin a rose to your dress?
Why didn't you go there a little earlier, Mother?
Now, I've got a feeling he brought you something too, a brooch or something.
It's really too bad.
Well, that's what he did, all right. He brought you a brooch.
I have enough brooches.
Then, baby, be satisfied. What else do you want?
I'd have given anything to know whether he flew in through the window or down the chimney.
Well, that's something you'll have to ask Ina. That is something you will have to ask Ina, darling. Ina will give you all the details. Ina talked to him for a full half hour.
I will ask Ina when I go over there.
And don't forget now either, Angel Face. I would be interested to know myself whether he came in through the window or the chimney.
Or should I ask the chimney sweep instead? The chimney sweep should know better than anyone else whether he flies through the chimney or not.
Not the chimney sweep, baby. Not the chimney sweep. What does a chimney sweep know about that stork? He'd yakety-yak to you about all sorts of humbug he doesn't even believe in himself. What are you gawking at in the street?
A man, Mother, 3 times bigger than an ox, with feet like steamboats.
Not possible. Not possible.
He's got a bed frame under his chin and he's fiddling the watch on the Rhine on it. He just went around the corner.
You will never grow up, will you? Scaring the life out of your dumb old mother. Go put your hat on. I'd be surprised if you ever start showing good sense. I have stopped hoping.
So have I, Mommy, so have I. It's a sad thing about my good sense. I have a sister who's been married for 2.5 years, and I'm an aunt now for the 3rd time myself, and I have absolutely no idea how it all happens. Don't get mad, Mommy, don't get mad. Who in the world am I supposed to ask if not you? Please, Mommy, tell me. Tell me, Mommy, I'm ashamed myself. I'm ashamed of myself. I'm begging you. Mother, say something. Don't tell me not to ask those little things like that. Answer me. What goes on? How does it all happen? You don't seriously expect me to keep on believing in the stork when I'm 14 years old.
Goodness gracious, what a strange little girl you are today. These ideas you get. I certainly can't do a thing like that.
Why not, Mother? Why not? It can't be anything too horrid if it makes everyone so happy.
Oh, God help me. I deserve to be... Go get dressed, young lady. Go get dressed.
I'm going. And if your baby goes out and asks the chimney sweep?
Oh, it's enough to drive you mad. Come here, baby, come here. I'll tell you all about it. I'll tell you everything. Merciful heavens. But not today, Vendla. Tomorrow, the day after, next week, whenever you like, sweetheart.
Tell me today, Mother. Tell me now, right now. Now that I've seen you so upset, I definitely won't be able to calm down unless you tell me.
I can't, Vendla.
Why can't you, Mommy? Here, I'll kneel at your feet and put my head on your lap. You can cover my head with your apron and talk the talk like you're the only person in the room. I won't flinch. I won't scream. I'll stick it out patiently no matter what.
Heaven knows, Vendla, that I'm not to blame. Heaven is my witness. Come, in the name of God. I will tell you, my child, how you came into the world. So listen carefully, Vendla.
I'm listening.
Baby, it's just no use. I can't take the responsibility. I deserve to be put in jail to have you taken away from me.
Brave, Mother.
Listen to me then.
Oh, God. God.
In order to have a child, are you getting this, Vendla?
Quick, Mother, I can't stand it.
In order to have a child, you have to love the man you're married to. Love him, I tell you, in a way that you can only love a husband. You have to love him so much with all your heart and all your soul that it's impossible to describe. You have to love him, Vendla, in a way that you at your age absolutely can't. Now you know.
God almighty.
Now you know the trials that lie in store for you.
And that's all there is?
So help me God. Now take the basket there and go over to Ina's. You'll get some hot chocolate and some cake there too. Come here, let's have another look at you. Lace up boots, silk gloves, sailor blouse, roses in your hair. But this little skirt really is getting much too short for you, Vendla.
Did you get some meat for lunch yet, Mommy?
May the Lord bless you and keep you. When I have a chance, I'll sew a ruffle on the bottom.
Scene 3. Punch and Rillo carrying a lamp. He bolts the door behind him.
Have you prayed tonight, Desdemona?
Pulls out a reproduction of Paloma Becio's Venus from under his shirt.
Our Father who art in heaven. You don't look like it, my love. Wrapped in your expectation of what's coming, as in that sweet moment of budding ecstasy when I saw you lying in the window of Jonathan Schlesinger's. Your supple legs and arms, the gentle curving of your hips, your firm young breasts just as enticing now. Oh, how delirious with joy the great master must have been when the 14-year-old original laid stretched out on the divan before his eyes. Will you still come to me in dreams now and then? I'll welcome you with outstretched arms and kiss you till you're breathless. You'll move in with me like a royal heiress reclaiming her deserted palace. Gates and doors will open at the touch of unseen hands, while down in the park, the fountain will happily begin to splash. It is the cause. It is the cause. You can tell by this fearsome pounding in my breast that my motive for this murder isn't frivolous. My throat grows dry at the thought of the lonely nights ahead of me. I swear to you, my child, I'm not doing this because I've had too much of you. How could anyone admit to having gotten sick of you? But you suck the marrow out of my bones. You bend my back. You steal the last sparkle from my youthful eyes. You're too demanding in your inhuman diffidence, too exhausting with your unmoving limbs. Either you or me. And the victory is mine. If I wanted to count them, all the departed with whom I fought the same battle here, Thuman's Psyche, another legacy of the hatchet-faced Mademoiselle Angelique, that rattlesnake in the paradise of my childhood, Correggio's Io, Lassault's Galatea, then a Cupid by Bouguereau, J. Van Beer's Ada, whom I had to abduct from a secret compartment in Papa's desk in order to add her to my harem, a quivering, twitching Leda by Macart that I happened to find in my brother's lecture notes. 7, you pubescent candidate for death, have hurried down this path to Tartarus ahead of you. Let that be your consolation. Leave off with these imploring looks. Don't try to push my torments beyond the limits of endurance. You're not dying for your sins, you're dying for mine. In heartrending self-defense against my own incursions, I'm committing my 7th conjugal murder. There's something tragic in the role of Bluebeard. I think all his murdered wives put together suffered less than he did each time he strangled one. But my conscience will be pacified. My body will regain its strength when you, devil, no longer reside in the red satin cushions of my jewel box. In your place, I'll invite Bodenhausen's Lurlay or Linger's Forsaken Maiden or Defregger's Loney to move into this sumptuous chamber of pleasure, which I will add all the more speed to my recovery. 3 more little months, perhaps, and your unveiled Jehoshaphat, sweet soul, would have begun to eat away my poor brain the way the sun consumes a lump of butter. It's high time we untied the knot. Ugh, there's a Heliogabalus in me. Moratura me salutat. Girl, why do you press your knees together? Why even now? Are you mindful of inscrutable eternity? One twitch and I'll set you free. One feminine gesture, one sign of lust, of sympathy, girl. I'll frame you in gold and hang you above my bed. Don't you see that it's your chasteness alone that gives birth to my debaucheries? Oh, woe unto those who are inhuman. One never fails to notice that she's an exemplary upbringing. She's had an exemplary upbringing. Well, so have I. My heart is breaking. Nonsense. Even Saint Agnes died for her restraint, and she wasn't half as naked as you. One last kiss on your blossoming body, the childishly budding breast, your sweetly rounded, your horribly cruel knee. Have you prayed tonight, Desdemona? It is the cause. It is the cause, my soul. Let me not name it to you, you chaste stars. It is the cause.
The picture falls into the depths. He lowers the lid. Scene 4, a hayloft. Melchior is lying on his back in the fresh hay. Venla comes up the ladder.
This is where you've been hiding? Everyone's looking for you. The wagon's gone back out again. You have to help. There's a storm coming up.
Get away from me. Get away from me.
What's wrong? What are you hiding your face for?
Go away. Go away. I'm going to throw you down the ladder.
Well, in that case, I'm definitely not going. Why won't you come out in the field with us, Melchior? It's dark and muggy in here. What do we care if we get soaked to the skin?
The hay has such a wonderful smell. The sky out there must be as black as the cloth on a coffin. All I can see is the glowing poppy in your breast. And I can hear your heart beating.
Don't kiss me, Melchior. Don't kiss me.
I can hear your heart beating.
People love each other if they kiss. Don't.
Oh, believe me, there's no such thing as love. There's only selfishness, only ego. I love you as little as you love me.
Don't, Melchior.
Venla.
Melchior, don't.
Scene 5.
Dear Mr. Stiefel, for 24 hours I have considered and reconsidered everything you wrote to me, and it's with a very heavy heart that I now take up my pen to provide you, To provide you with the cost of passage to America will, I give you my most solemn assurance, not be possible. In the first place, I don't have a sum like that at my disposal, and in the second place, even if I did have it, it would be the most grievous sin imaginable to furnish you with the means of committing such a rash and fateful act. You would be doing me a bitter injustice, Mr. Stiefel, if you were to see in my refusal a sign of insufficient love. On the contrary, it would be the most gross violation of my duty as a motherly friend if I were to allow your momentary distress to cause me to lose my own head as well and blindly yield to my immediate impulses in this situation. I'm fully prepared, should you so desire, to write to your parents. I will try to convince your parents that in the course of this term you did as much as you were able to, that you have exhausted your strength to the point where a strict judgment on your abilities would not only be unjustified, but indeed would have the most detrimental of effects on your spiritual and physical well-being. Your veiled threat to take your own life, should I not make it possible for you to run away, did, quite frankly, Mr. Stiefel, put me off somewhat. No matter how undeserved one's misfortunes may be, one should never, ever allow oneself to be driven to choose underhanded methods. The way in which you would make me, who has shown you nothing but kindness, responsible for a potential atrocity, smacks of something that a mean-spirited person could do all too easily, that a mean-spirited person could all too easily construe as an extortion attempt. I must confess that this behavior is the very last thing I would have expected from you, who in all else is so well aware of one's duty to oneself. However, I'm firmly convinced that you were still too much under the influence of your initial fright to be fully conscious of what you were doing. And so, I trust that these words of mine will find you already in a more composed frame of mind. Accept matters as they stand. In my opinion, it is wholly impermissible to judge a young man by his report card. We have too many examples of very poor students who grew up to be excellent people, and vice versa, of outstanding students who acquitted themselves rather indifferently in life. In any case, you have my assurance that your misfortune will not, insofar as it lies in my power, in any way affect your intercourse with Melchior. It will continue to be a joy to see my son in the company of someone who, no matter how the world may judge him, was able to win my fullest sympathy. So chin up, Mr. Stiefel. Similar crises of one kind or another befall each and every one of us and simply have to be survived. If everyone immediately resorted to dagger and poison, the world might soon run out of people. Hoping to hear from you again very soon, with the very best wishes from your unswervingly devoted, motherly friend, Fanny G.
Scene 6. The Bergman's Garden in morning sunshine.
Why did you sneak out of the room? To look for violets. Because Mother sees me smiling. Why can't you make your lips work anymore? I don't know. I can't find the words. The path is like a thick carpet. No pebbles, no thorns. My feet don't touch the ground. Oh, did I sleep last night? This is where they were. I'm starting to feel as serious as a nun in a communion. Sweet violets, shush, Mommy. I'm ready to put my sackcloth on. Oh God, if only somebody would come who I could throw my arms around and talk to.
Scene 7. Dusk. A few clouds are in the sky. The path winds through the low brush and reeds. The river can be heard murmuring at some distance.
Better safe than sorry. I don't fit in. Let them climb up on each other's heads. I'll pull the door shut behind me and set myself free. I'm not that keen on sticking around just to get sidestepped. I didn't force myself on them. Why should I force myself on them now? I don't have any contrast with the dear Lord, or any contract with the dear Lord. You can twist things around any way you like. They forced me. I don't blame my parents. They had to have been prepared for the worst, though. They were old enough to know what they were doing. I was a baby when I came into the world. Otherwise, I might have been smart enough to become a different person. Why should I have to suffer for the fact that everyone else was already here? I must have been dropped on my head. If someone gives me a mad dog for a present, I'll give them a mad dog back to him. And if he won't take his mad dog back, I'll be humane. It must have been dropped on my head. A person enters the world entirely by chance, and he shouldn't, after careful consideration, it's enough to make you shoot yourself. At least the weather showed some consideration. All day it looked like rain, and now it's clearing up. There's an unusual stillness out here. Nothing harsh or irritating anywhere. The sky and the earth are like a transparent spider web, and everything feels so comfortable. The landscape is as pretty as a lullaby. Go to sleep, my little prince. Like Miss Snandula sang, too bad she holds her eyebrows so ungraciously. The last time I danced was the St. Cecilia's Day party. Snandulia only dances with eligible men. The silk gown she wore was low cut in the front and the back. In the back, it went down to her waist. And in the front, it went straight into my brainstem. She couldn't have been wearing anything underneath. That would be something that could still captivate me. More for curiosity's sake. It must be a strange sensation, a feeling like being swept over a waterfall. I won't tell anyone that I'm returning without having finished the job. I'll act like I experienced all that, like everyone else. There's something shameful about having been a human without ever getting to know the most human thing of all. You can't come from Egypt, sir, if you haven't seen the pyramids. I don't want to cry again today. I don't want to think about my funeral again. Melchior will lay a wreath on my coffin. Reverend Bleakhead will console my parents. Mr. Heartpain will cite some historical examples. I probably won't get a gravestone. I would have liked to have a snow-white marble urn on a black granite column. Fortunately, I won't miss it. The monuments are for the living, not the dead. I need a whole year to say goodbye to everyone in my head. I don't want to cry again. I'm glad to be able to look back without bitterness. All the wonderful evenings I spent with Melchior, under the willows, at the ranger's hut, out there on the army road where the 5 linden trees are, up on the mountains in the ruins of the Runenberg. When the time comes, I'm going to concentrate as hard as I can on whipped cream. Whipped cream is so innocuous. It's filling and it leaves behind a pleasant aftertaste. Human beings, too, I'd imagine, as being infinitely worse. I never met anyone who didn't want the best from himself. There have been many people I've pitied for my sake. I approached the altar like the youth in ancient Etruria, whose death rattle buys his brothers a year's worth of health and happiness. I drained the bitter cup and let the mysterious terrors of departure roll over my tongue. I sob with sorrow for my fate. Life has given me the cold shoulder. Earnest, friendly eyes are beckoning to me from the other side. The headless queen. The headless queen. Sympathy waiting for me with soft arms. Your commandments are for the immature. I carry my free ticket inside me. When the empty shell falls, the butterfly flutters away from it. The illusion is no longer an embarrassment. It isn't fair of you to make me busy. The fog is clearing. Life is a matter of taste.
Lose something?
Elsie,
What are you looking for out here?
why did you scare me like that?
What are you looking for? Did you lose something?
What did you scare me so horribly for?
I was in the city. I'm on my way home.
I don't know what I lost.
No point in looking for it then.
Damn it, damn it, damn it.
I haven't been home for 4 days.
Quiet as a cat.
Because I'm wearing my dancing slippers. My mother's going to faint. Come up to our house with me.
Where have you been kicking around this time?
At the Priapus Club.
The Priapus Club?
At Knowles, at Ferendorf's, at Padinsky's, at Lenz's, at Ranks, Spuler's, all kinds of places. Ring, 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 she's ready for anything.
Do they paint you?
Ferendorf's painting me as a stylite. I stand on a Corinthian column. Ferendorf, I'm telling you, is a first-class crackpot. I squashed one of his tubes last time. He wipes his brush in my hair. I smack him in the ear. He throws his palette at my head. I knock over his easel. He comes after me with a palette knife, and we go charging over the sofa and tables and chairs around and around the studio. There was a sketch behind the stove. Be a good boy or I'll tear it up. He promised me amnesty and ended up attacking me. I'm telling you, attacking me with kisses.
Where do you stay at night when you're in the city?
Yesterday, I was at Knowles. Day before yesterday, Bojokowitz's. And Sunday at Oikonomopoulos's. There was champagne at Padinsky's. Valabrigas had just sold his plague victim. Adolar was drinking out of an ashtray. Lentz was singing The Baby Killer. And Adolar tore the daylights out of his guitar. I was so drunk, they had to put me to bed. You still in school, Moritz?
No. I'm leaving this quarter.
That's right. Time really flies when you're earning money. Remember how we used to play robbers? Venla Bergman and you and me and the others, when you'd come out after dinner and have warm goat milk at our house? What's Venla doing? I haven't seen her since the flood. What's Melky Gabor doing? Does he still give you those profound looks? We used to stand across from each other in chorus.
He's a philosopher.
Venla was over at our house not too long ago and gave my mother some jam. I was sitting for Isidore Landauer that day. He needs me for the Virgin Mary with the Christ child. He's disgusting and a jerk. Yikes! Like a weather vane. Do you have a hangover?
From last night, we put it away like oh god, hippopotamus. I came staggering home at 5 o'clock.
I can just tell by looking at you. Were there any girls there?
Arabella, hot little barmaid, and Lucina. The owner left us alone with her all night.
I can tell just by looking at you, Moritz. I don't know what a hangover is. During Carnival last year, I went 3 days and 3 nights without getting into bed or out of my clothes. From the ballroom to the cafe, lunch at the Bella Vista, Tingle Tangle later on, and the ballroom at night. Lena was with me, and Viola, who's fat. On the 3rd night, Heinrich found me.
He was looking for you?
He tipped over my arm. I was passed out on a pile of snow. After that, I went over to his place. I didn't leave his apartment for 14 days. What a ghastly time. Every morning, I had to wrap myself up in his Persian robe, and every night I had to walk around the room in a black page boy costume. White lace cuffs and a white lace collar. Every day, he took pictures of me in different attitude. One time on the back of a sofa as Ariadne, one time as Leda, one time as Ganymede, one time on all fours as a female Nibur-Canizir. And he was always raving about killing, about shooting, suicide, and gas fumes. First thing in the morning, he'd get in bed with the pistol, load it up with bullets, and stick it in my chest. One blink, and I'll pull the trigger. Oh, he would have done it, Moritz. He would have done it. Then he put the thing in his mouth like a blowpipe. He said it arouses your self-preservatory instincts. And then, the bullet would have gone straight through my spine.
Is Henrik still alive?
What do I know? There was a mirror set into the ceiling above the bed. The room was just a closet, but it seemed as tall as a tower and as bright as an opera house. You saw yourself literally hanging in the sky. I had horrible dreams that night. God, oh God, I couldn't wait for it to get light again. Good night, Ilsa. When you're asleep, you look so pretty I could kill you.
Is this Henrik still alive?
I hope not. One day, when he was out buying absinthe, I threw his coat on and snuck out on the street. Carnival was over. The police picked me up. What are you doing in man's clothes? They took me to headquarters, and Knoll and Ferendorf and Kadinsky and Spure and Oikonomopoulos, the whole Priapus Club, came and bailed me out. They shipped me to Adelar's studio in a cab. Since then, I've been real faithful to the crowd. Ferendorf's a monkey, Knoll's a pig, but Joent's which is an owl, Loyson's a hyena, Oikonomopoulos a camel. But that's why I love them. Every one of them as much as the others, and wouldn't want to be attached to anybody else, even if the world was full of archangels and millionaires.
I have to go back, Ilsa.
Come up to our house with me.
What for? What for?
To have some warm goat milk. I've got a curling iron for your hair, and I'll hang a little bell around your neck. We still have a rocking horse you can play with.
I have to go back. I still have Sassanids, the Sermon on the Mount, the Parallelepiped on my conscience. Good night, Ilse.
Sweet dreams. Do you still go down to the wigwam where Melky Gabor buried my tomahawk? Blah! I'll be on the trash heap by the time you guys are ready.
One word is all it would have taken. Ilsa! Ilsa! She can't hear me, thank God. I'm not in the mood. It takes a clear head and a light heart for that. What a shame. What a shame to miss the opportunity. I'll say I had an enormous crystal mirror over my bed. That I reared a wild filly, that I made her prance around on my carpets in a long black silk stockings and black patent leather boots and black long kid gloves and black velvet around her neck, that I smothered her with my pillow in a fit of insanity. I'll smile when the conversation turns to lust. I'll scream to be you, Ilsa. The Priapus Club, unconsciousness. It takes my strength away. This sunny child, this lucky thing, this floozy on my trail of tears. Oh. Here, I found it again without looking for it. The grassy bank. The cattail seemed to have grown since yesterday. The view through the willows is still the same. The river's as slow as molten lead. Before I forget, the sparks are so wild. Up and down, this way, that way. Souls, shooting stars. Before I started the fire, you could still see the grass and a line of light on the horizon. Now it's gotten dark. Now I won't be going home.
Act 3, Scene 1. The conference room. Portraits of Pestalozzi and J.J. Rousseau are on the walls. Around a green table lit by several gas lamps sits Professor Schmaltz, Blodgett, Starver, Brockenbone, Fitztongue, and Killafly. At the head of the table, in an elevated chair, sits Headmaster Herpane. The custodian Fetch cowers by the door.
Marvin, I think you're on mute.
Do any of you gentlemen wish to make a further comment? Gentlemen, if we have no choice but to file a motion with the Senior Undersecretary of Education for the expulsion of our delinquent student, then we have no choice for the most compelling reasons. We have no choice so as to atone for the misfortune which has already befallen us, just as we have none so as to render our institution secure against similar catastrophes in the future. We have no choice so as to punish our delinquent student for the demoralizing influence he exerted on his classmates. Last of all, we have no choice so as to prevent him from exerting the same influence on his other classmates. We have no choice. And this, gentleman, may well be the most compelling reason of all, whereby any and all objections will be rendered null and void, namely that we must protect our institution against the ravages of a suicide epidemic, whose outbreak has already occurred at various other institutions, and which has hitherto defied all attempts to require students to adhere to the requirement that they exist required by the requirements of their required education. Do any of you gentlemen wish to make a further comment?
I can no longer resist the conclusion that the time has come to open a window somewhere.
Fitztongue?
The current atmosphere resembles of an underground catacomb, or the archives of the Supreme Court building in Old Wetzlar, described by Goethe.
Fetch.
Yes, sir?
Open a window. We have sufficient atmosphere outside, thank God. Do any of you gentlemen wish to make a further comment?
If my esteemed colleagues wish to have a window opened, I, for my part, have no objections to raise. I'd only like to request that the window that is wished to be opened not be directly behind my back.
Fetch.
Yes, sir?
Open the other window. Do any of you gentlemen wish to make a further comment?
Without meaning to prolong the controversy, I, for my part, would like to call to attention to the fact that the other window has been bricked up since last autumn.
Fetch.
Yes, sir.
Leave the other window closed. I find myself obliged, gentlemen, to put the motion to a vote. I request that all those colleagues in favor of having the only window which can be opened rise from their seats. 1, 2, 3. Fetch.
Yes, sir.
Leave the other window closed as well. I, for my part, am of the opinion that the atmosphere leaves nothing to be desired. Do any of you gentlemen wish to make a further comment? Gentlemen, let us assume that we were to neglect to file a motion with the Senior Undersecretary of Education for the expulsion of our delinquent student. In that case, the Senior Undersecretary of Education will hold us responsible for the misfortune that has befallen us. Of the various other institutions afflicted with the suicide epidemic, those in which more than 25% have fallen victim to its ravages have been suspended by the Senior Undersecretary of Education. To protect our institution against this most shattering blow is our duty as guardians and keepers of our institution. Hurts us deeply, my esteemed colleagues, that we are not in a position to admit the auxiliary qualifications of our delinquent student as mitigating circumstances. Lenient treatment, which could be justified with respect to our delinquent student, could not be justified with respect to the acutely threatened existence of our institution. We find ourselves under the necessity of condemning the guilty, lest we ourselves, the innocent, be condemned. Fetch!
Yes, sir.
Bring him up.
The current atmosphere is officially viewed as leaving little or nothing to be desired, then I should like to make a motion that during summer vacation, the other window be bricked up as well.
If our room strikes our dear esteemed colleague Fitztongue as insufficiently ventilated, then I should like to make a motion that our esteemed colleague Fitztongue have a ventilator installed in his upper sinuses.
I must request that our colleagues Killafly and Fitztongue show a measure of decorum. Our delinquent student would appear to be on the stairway already. Step up to the table. After Mr. Stiefel received word of the wicked crime his son had committed, the distraught father, in the hope of thereby possibly garnering clues as to the cause of the abominable misdeed, searched the effects left behind by his son Moritz, and thereby chanced to find, in a place irrelevant to the discussion, a document which, while not in and of itself capable of rendering the abominable misdeed comprehensible, does provide us with an unfortunately all too adequate explanation of the criminal's moral derangement in the period immediately preceding the crime. Written in dialogue form entitled Copulation, furnished with a life-sized illustration, bursting with the most shameless obscenities, the 20-page treatise in question could satisfy the most sophisticated demands of a depraved libertine could make upon pornographic literature. You are to remain silent. After Mr. Stiefel had furnished us with the document in question, and we had given the distraught father a promise at all costs to identify its author, the handwriting at hand was compared with the handwriting of every fellow student of the deceased transgressor and revealed, in the unanimous judgment of the entire faculty and in complete accord with the expert opinion of our highly regarded colleague, the professor of calligraphy, the most serious imaginable similarity with yours. You are to remain silent. Notwithstanding the overwhelming fact of similarity as adduced to by the unimpeachable authorities, we believe that we may be permitted to refrain for the time being from taking any further steps in order that we may interrogate the delinquent student concerning the crime against decency with which he is charged in connection with the motive for suicide which resulted therefrom. You are to answer the precisely formulated questions that I will put to you in order, one after the other, with a simple and respectful yes or no. Fetch.
Yes, sir.
A file. I shall request that from this point onward, our secretary, Professor Killafly, take minutes that correspond as strictly as possible to the spoken proceedings. Are you familiar with the documents?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the content of this document?
Yes.
Is the handwriting in this document your own?
Yes.
Are you responsible for the composition of this obscene document?
Yes, sir, I wish you'd show me one obscene.
You are to answer the precisely formulated questions that I shall put to you with a simple and respectful yes or no.
What I wrote is nothing more and nothing less than a well-known fact to you.
You scoundrel.
I wish just that you'd show me one offense against decency in what I wrote.
Do you actually think I mean to sit here and play the fool for you? Fetch! You have as little respect for the dignity of your assembled teachers as you have for the sense of decency regarding this deeply rooted feeling for the discretion of the modesty of a moral order. Fetch!
Yes, sir.
This is Langenscheid's 3-hour course in agglutinative Volapük.
I
shall request that our secretary, Professor Killafly, close the minutes. You are to remain silent. Fetch!
Yes, sir.
Take him down.
Scene 2. Cemetery in pouring rain. His raised umbrella in his hand, Reverend Bleakhead is standing in front of an open grave. To his right, Mr. Stiefel, his friend Ziegenmelker, and Uncle Probst. On the left, Headmaster Heartpain with Professor Bruckenbone. Boys from the school complete the circle. At some distance, by a badly weathered gravestone, Marta and Ilse.
For whoever spurns the grace which the Eternal Father has bestowed upon those born in sin, he shall die a spiritual death. But whoever has lived in evil and served evil in willful carnal denial of the honor due unto God, he shall die a corporeal death. Yet whosoever has wickedly cast off the cross which the all-merciful one has inflicted upon him for his sins, truly, truly I say to you, he shall die an eternal death. Let us, however, who continue to tread the path of thorns, praise the Lord, the Almighty, and give thanks unto him for the mysteries of his merciful grace. For as truly as this soul died a threefold death, so truly will the Lord God lead the righteous to salvation and eternal life. Amen.
The boy was no son of mine. The boy was no son of mine. Even when he was little, I didn't like him.
Suicide is the most serious imaginable offense against the moral order. Constitutes the most serious proof imaginable of the moral order, in that the perpetrator spares the moral order the necessity of pronouncing its verdict, and thus confirms its existence.
Despicable, debauched, degenerate, depraved, and dissolute. I wouldn't have believed my own mother if she'd told me a child could treat his parents so rottenly.
Do a thing like that to a father who day and night for 20 years had thought of nothing but the welfare of his child.
We know that for those who love God, all things work together for the best. Bethink yourself of the disconsolate mother who's an endeavor to replace with redoubled love what she has lost.
It's quite probable he would not have passed in any case.
And if he had passed, we most positively would have held him back next spring.
And if he had passed, we most positively would have held him back next spring. Your very first obligation is to yourself. You're the head of a family.
You leave it all to me. Nasty, nasty bit of weather. Makes my guts jump. If you don't intervene immediately with a couple of stiff grogs, you could kiss your heart valves goodbye.
Mr. Stiefel, led by the Reverend Bleakhead, Headmaster Heartpain, Professor Bruckenbone, Uncle Probst, and Ziegenmeyer exit. The rain lets up.
Rest in peace, old sport. Give my regards to my eternal brides. Their sacrifice is not forgotten. And commend me most devotedly to our gracious Lord. You poor stooge. For the sake of your angelic innocence, they'll put a scarecrow on your grave.
Any sign of the gun? They don't have to look for any gun.
Did you see him, Robert?
A goddamn filthy, slimy fraud. Who saw him? Who?
They put a sheet over him.
Was his tongue hanging out? His eyes. That's why they put the sheet on.
Horrible.
Are you quite sure he hanged himself?
They say there was nothing left of his head.
Nonsense. Ridiculous.
I had the rope in my hand. Never seen somebody who hanged himself that they didn't cover up.
Couldn't have found a ruder way to send his regards.
What the hell? They say hanging's very pretty.
The thing is, he still owes me 5 marks. We had a bet. He swore he wouldn't flunk.
It's your fault he's lying here. You called him a show-off.
Whoop-de-doo. I have to cram all night myself. If he'd learned his Greek literature, he wouldn't have needed to hang himself.
Have you done the essay, Otto?
The first paragraph.
I have no idea what I'm going to write.
Weren't you there when Schmaltz signed it?
I'm gonna cobble together something from Democritus.
See if I can find anything in Myers-Bridged.
Have you done the Virgil for tomorrow?
Hurry! Hurry, the gravediggers are coming.
Shouldn't we maybe wait, Ilsa?
What for? We'll bring some new ones. We'll be bringing them. There's plenty more where these came from.
You're right, Ilsa. I'll dig up our roses. I get beaten anyway. They'll really thrive here.
I'll water them every time I go by. I'll bring over forget-me-nots from the meadow and irises from home.
It should be spectacular. Spectacular.
I was already across the bridge when I heard the bang.
Poor thing.
And I know the reason too, Marta.
Did he say something to you?
Parallelepiped? But don't tell anyone.
Cross my heart.
Here's the gun.
That's why they couldn't find it.
I took it right out of his hand when I came by in the morning.
Give it to me, Ilsa. Please give it to me.
No, I'm saving it as a souvenir.
Is it true, Ilsa, that he's lying in there without a head?
He must have loaded it with water. There was blood spattered all over the cattails. His brains were hanging in the willows.
Scene 3. Mr. and Mrs. Gabor.
They needed a scapegoat. The accusations were getting louder and they couldn't just let the matter rest. And now my child has had the bad luck to run afoul of those pedants at precisely the wrong time. And you expect me, his own mother, to help his executioners finish their work? God forbid.
14 years I've observed your imaginative educational methods and said nothing. They were at odds with my own ideas. It has always been my conviction that a child is not a plaything, that a child is entitled to our utmost seriousness. But I told myself, if one person's charm and intellect are capable of replacing another's earnest principles, then they might be preferable to the earnest principles. I'm not reproaching you, Fanny, but don't stand in my way when I try to atone for the injustice you and I have done the boy.
Oh, I'll stand in your way so long as there's a drop of warm blood in me. My child would be lost in the reformatory. Maybe a criminal mind can be improved in an institution like that. I don't know, but a good-natured person will turn into a criminal there as surely as a plant will die if you deprive it of air and sunlight. To be honest, I am not aware of any injustice on my part. I continue to thank heaven for having shown me the way to awaken an upright character and a noble mind in my child. What has he done that's so terrible? It would never occur to me to make excuses for him. It's not his fault he was expelled from school. And if it were his fault, he certainly paid for it. You may understand all this better. You may theoretically be completely in the right. But I cannot allow my only child to be stripped from me and hounded to his death.
That's out of our hands, Franny. That's a risk we accepted along with our happiness. Those too weak to march must fall by the wayside, and ultimately it isn't the worst thing that could happen if the inevitable occurs ahead of time. May heaven spare us that. Our task is to steady the weak of will to the best of our knowledge and abilities. It wasn't his fault he was expelled from school, nor would it have been his fault if he hadn't been expelled from school. You're too optimistic. You see a cocky little prank when what we're dealing with is a deeply flawed personality. You women aren't competent to judge such things. The person who can write that kind of thing that Melchior wrote must be tainted in the very core of his being. The marrow is affected. A halfway healthy personality couldn't bring himself to do a thing like that. None of us is a saint. Every one of us veers from the straight and narrow. What he wrote, however, represents a principle. What he wrote bears no resemblance to a momentary accidental lapse. It documents with horrifying clarity and outspoken intention. That natural proclivity, that penchant for immorality, that sake of immorality. What he wrote manifests the exceptional spiritual corruption we lawyers characterize with the expression moral insanity. Whether anything can be done about his condition, I'm not in a position to say. If we wish to preserve one glimmer of hope, and most important, to preserve our spotless consciousness as the parents of the individual, it is time for us to go to work with firmness and in all seriousness. Let's not argue anymore, Franny. I can feel how hard it will be for you. I know you adore him because he mirrors so completely your natural virtuosity. Rise above yourself. Now is the time to finally be selfless toward your son.
God, help me, there's no fighting an attitude like this. Only a man could talk this way. Only a man can let himself be so blinded by the dead letter. Only a man can so blindly ignore what's staring him in the face. I have treated Melchior responsibly and prudently since the very first day I saw he was sensitive to impressions from his environment. But are we responsible for accidents? Well, you could get hit in the head with a falling brick tomorrow morning, and then your best friend comes along, your father comes along, and instead of taking care of your injuries, he steps on you. I refuse to stand and watch while my son gets slaughtered. That's what a mother is for. It's absurd. It's unbelievable. What in the world did he write anyway? Could you ask for a more convincing proof of his harmlessness, of his stupidity, of his childhood innocence than the fact that he could write a thing like that? You'd have to have no conception of human nature. You'd have to be a totally soulless bureaucrat or hopelessly narrow-minded to see a sign of moral corruption in this. Say whatever you want. If you put Melchior in the reformatory, I'm divorcing you. And then I'll see if I can't somewhere in the world find the resources to save my child from destruction.
You're going to have to reconcile yourself to it. If not today, then tomorrow. It isn't easy for anyone to come to terms with misfortune. I'll stand by your side, and when your courage threatens to waver, I'll spare you no pains and no sacrifice to lighten your heart. The future looks so great in me, so clouded. All I'll need now would be to lose you too.
I won't see him again. I won't see him again. He can't stand vulgarity. He'd never adjust to the filth. He'll lose all restraint. He's haunted by the most ghastly example. And if I see him again, good God, that spring-like joy in his heart, that sunny laughter of his, everything, that childish determination to fight for goodness and justice. Oh, that bright, clear morning sky I nurtured in his soul as my highest good. Take me. If the injustice cries out for retribution, take me. Do whatever you want with me. I'm the one to blame, but keep your frightful hands off my child.
He has committed an offense.
He has not committed an offense.
He has committed an offense. I would have given anything to be able to spare you in your boundless love. This morning, a woman came to me, and beside herself, hardly able to speak, with this letter in her hand. A letter to her 15-year-old daughter. She'd open it out of stupid curiosity. The girl wasn't home. In the letter, Melchior tells his 15-year-old child that what he did is leaving him no peace. That he sinned against her, etc., etc., but will, of course, take full responsibility for everything. She shouldn't fret. Even if she thinks there might have been consequences, he's already taken steps to find help. His expulsion makes this easier for him. What started as a mistake may yet lead to their happiness. A more absurd twaddle of the same sort.
Impossible.
The letter is forged. In a case of fraud, an attempt to exploit the widely known fact of his expulsion. I have spoken to the boy as of yet. Look at the handwriting. Look at the style.
Filthy, shameless outrage.
I'm afraid so.
No. No, no. Never, never.
It will all be the better for us. The woman wrung her hands and asked me what she should do. I told her she shouldn't let her 15-year-old daughter climb around in haylofts. Fortunately, she left the letter here with me. If we send Melchior to a different school now, where he wouldn't even be under parental supervision, in 3 weeks we'll be facing the identical situation. Another expulsion. His spring-like heart is developing a taste for it. Tell me, Fatty, what am I supposed to do with the boy?
The reformatory.
Uh,
Reformatory.
What you will find there, above all, is what was wrongly withheld him from at home. Iron discipline, earnest principles, and moral constraints to which he must submit without exception. Beyond that, the reformatory is not the chamber of horrors you imagine it to be.
No.
The institution stresses the development of a Christian way of thinking and feeling. A boy finally learns there to want what is good rather than what is entertaining. And in all his dealings to consider not his personality, but the law. Half an hour ago, I received a telegram from my brother confirming the woman's statements. Melchior confided in him and asked him for 200 marks to run away to England.
Scene 4, the reformatory. A corridor. Diethelm, Reinhold, Rupert, Helmuth, Gaston, and Melchior.
Here's a quarter mark piece.
So?
So I put it on the floor and we all stand around it. Whoever hits it can have it.
You in, Melchior?
No, thank you.
A little Joseph.
He's worn out. He's here to recover.
It isn't smart for me to stay away from them. Everybody's watching me. I have to participate, otherwise I'm sunk. Captivity makes them suicidal. If I break my neck, it's okay. If I make it out, it's also okay. I can't lose. I'm getting to be friends here with Rupert. He knows his way around here. I'll give him a Bible lesson, tell him about Moab and Lot and his daughters, and Judah's daughter-in-law Tamar, and Queen Vashti, and Abishag the Shunammite. He's got the most afflicted physiognomy of anyone in our sector.
Got it.
Coming.
Day after tomorrow, maybe.
Right now. Now. Oh God. Oh God.
Summa cum laude.
Cum laude. Thanks very much.
Give it here, you bastard.
pig-faced.
Derelict.
Here!
I'll beat the shit out of him.
Sick 'em, boys. Charge!
Charge!
Charge! Charge!
Charge!
That's where the lightning conductor comes down. You have to wrap a handkerchief around it. Whenever I think about her, the blood rushes to my head. And Mort is like lead in my feet. I'll go to the editor. Pay me by the 100 lines. I'll be a hawker in the street, be a stringer, write a local news, ethics, psychophysics. It's not so easy to starve anymore. Soup kitchens, temperance halls. The building's 60 feet tall and the stucco is crumbling off. She hates me. She hates me because I stole her freedom. No matter what I do, it's still rape. I can only hope that gradually, as the years go by, in 8 days, there's a new moon. Tomorrow, I'll oil the hinges. By Saturday, no matter what, I have to know who has the key. At Sunday night service, a cataleptic seizure. God willing, no one else will be sick, and I can see it all as clearly as if it had already happened. I can get over the sill without any trouble. One swing, one handle hold, but you have to wrap a handkerchief around it. Here comes the Grand Inquisitor.
Melchior exits left. Dr. Procrus enters with the locksmith.
Granted, these windows are on the 4th floor, and we've planted stinging nettles underneath them, but what do these degenerates care about stinging nettles? Last winter, one of them climbed out a skylight, and we had all the fuss of retrieval and transport and burial.
You want me to make the grating out of wrought iron?
Wrought iron, yes. And since it can't be set into the wall, use rivets.
Scene 5, a bedroom. Mrs. Bergman, Ina Mueller, and Dr. Seltzer, the public health officer. Venla in bed.
How old are you?
14 and a half.
I've been prescribing Blod's pills for 15 years now and have obtained the most dazzling results in a great number of cases. I find them preferable to cod liver oil and iron tonics. Begin by taking 3 to 4 pills a day and increase the dosage as rapidly as you can tolerate. I directed the young Baroness Elfriede von Witzleben to increase her dosage by 1 pill every 3 days. The Baroness misunderstood me and decreased it by 3 pills every 1 day. After little more than 3 weeks, the Baroness was able to accompany her mama to the spa in Bad Pyrmont for a post-therapeutic cure. I shall excuse you from tiring walks and extra meals. In exchange, my dear child, you must promise me that as soon as your appetites have returned, you will exercise vigorously and not be ashamed to ask for nourishment. At that point, the palpitations will quickly subside, and the headaches and chills, the dizziness, and our terrible indigestion. Only 8 days after beginning her cure, the young Baroness Elfriede von Witzleben was having an entire roast chicken with new potatoes in their skins for breakfast.
Can I offer you a glass of wine, Doctor?
Thank you, my dear Miss Bergman. My conveyance is waiting. Don't let it upset you too much. In a few weeks, our dear little patient will be as fresh and lively as a gazelle again. Rest assured. Goodbye, Mrs. Bergman. Goodbye, dear child. Goodbye, ladies. Goodbye.
The leaves on your plane tree are turning already. Can you see it from bed? Short-lived splendor, hardly even worth the joy of seeing it come and go like this. I have to leave soon myself. Mueller's meeting me in front of the post office, and I have to go to the dressmaker's first. Mucky's getting his first little pair of pants, and I told Carl he'd get a new woolen suit for winter.
Sometimes I'll feel so wonderful. Everything's sunshine and happiness. I wouldn't have thought it was possible to feel so good. I'll feel like going outside, out on the grass in the evening sun and looking for primroses along the river and sitting on the riverbank and dreaming. And then this toothache starts and I think I'm gonna die before the sun goes down tomorrow. I feel hot and cold. Everything starts going dark and then this monster starts fluttering in. Every time I wake up, I see Mother crying. Oh, that hurts me so much. I can't tell you, Ina.
Can I prop up your pillow for you?
He thinks the vomiting will stop, and then it will be safe for you to get up again. I also think it's better if you get up soon, Vendla.
The next time I drop in, maybe you'll be running around the house again. Take care, Mother. I absolutely must get to the dressmakers. God bless you, Vendla dear. Get well very, very soon now.
Goodbye, Ina. Bring me some of those primroses next time you come. Goodbye. Oh, say hello to the boys for me.
What else did he say out there, Mother?
He didn't say anything. He said that Miss von Witzelben also had a tendency to faint. That's the way it is. That's almost always the way it is with anemia.
Did he say I have anemia, Mother?
He said you should have lots of milk and meat and vegetables when your appetite comes back.
Mother, I don't think I have anemia.
You have anemia, baby. There's nothing to worry about, Vendla. Nothing to worry about. You have anemia.
No, Mother, no. I know it. I feel it. I don't have anemia. I have dropsy.
You have anemia. Didn't he just say you had anemia? Stop worrying about it, darling. You will get better.
It won't get better. I have dropsy. I'm going to die. Mother, oh, Mother, I'm going to die.
Baby, you aren't going to die. You aren't going to die. Merciful heavens, you aren't going to die.
What? Then why are you crying so miserably for?
You aren't going to die. Baby, you don't have dropsy. My little girl, you have a baby. You have a baby. Oh, why did you do this to me?
I didn't do anything to you.
Oh, stop denying it, Vendla. I know everything. I couldn't bring myself to say anything before. Vendla, my Vendla.
But that's not possible, Mother. I'm not married.
Great God Almighty, that's just it. You're not married. That's the terrible thing. Vendla, what have you done?
I honestly don't remember anymore. We were lying in the hay, but I've never loved anybody in the world except you, Mother.
Sweetheart.
Well, Mother, why didn't you tell me everything?
Baby, let's not make it any harder for each other. Pull yourself together. Don't despair, my baby. Tell that to a 14-year-old girl? Goodness, I'd sooner have watched the sun go out. I didn't treat you any different than my dear, kind mother treated me. Oh, let's trust in the Lord, Vendla. Let's do our part and hope for mercy. You see, baby, nothing has happened yet. And as long as we don't lose courage ourselves, the Lord won't forsake either. Be brave, Vendla, be brave. You're sitting at the window and you let your hands rest in your lap because everything is turning out for the best after all. And then it all caves in so suddenly that your heart feels like breaking right then and there. Why are you shaking?
Somebody knocked on the door.
I didn't hear anything, sweetie.
Oh, I heard it very clearly. Who's out there?
No one. Old Mrs. Schmidt from Garden Street. You came at just the right time, Mrs. Schmidt.
Scene 6. Men and women working in a vineyard on a hillside. In the west, the sun is setting behind mountain peaks. From the valley, the clear sound of bells. On the highest terrace of vines, beneath the overhanging cliffs, Hunchen and Ernest are rolling in the dying grass.
I worked too hard.
Let's not be sad. Life's too short.
You see them hanging there, but you're worn out, and tomorrow they'll be crushed.
Being tired's as unbearable as being hungry.
Oh, I am worn out.
This one last glowing muscatel.
I can't summon the strength for it.
If I pull the branch down, it will bob around above our mouths. Neither of us has to move. We'll bite the fruit off and let the bare stems snap back up to the vine.
No sooner have you made your decision when, lo and behold, your vanished strength comes surging up again.
And the flaming firmament. And the evening bells. It's never going to get much better than this.
Sometimes I can already see myself as Reverend Robo, an affectionate little housewife, an extensive library, rights and privileges in every circle of society. You get 6 days to think, and on the 7th day, you open your mouth. When you go out for a walk, schoolboys and schoolgirls shake hands with you, and when you come home, the coffee is steaming, the cake is on the table, and girls are bringing in apples through the garden gate. Can you imagine anything nicer?
I imagine half-closed eyelashes, half-open lips, and Turkish draperies. I don't believe in grand emotions. Look, the reason our parents wear long faces is to cover up their stupid thoughts. When they're by themselves, they call each other blockheads just like we do. I know they do. When I'm a millionaire, I'll build a monument to God. Think of the future as a bowl of fresh milk with sugar and cinnamon. One man spills it and cries, the other one churns it and sweats. Why not skim the cream off? Or don't you think we could learn how?
We'll skim the cream off.
And let the chickens eat the rest. I've slipped into plenty of nooses already.
We'll skim the cream off, Hansi. Why are you laughing?
Are you at it again already?
One of us has to start.
Maybe when we look back on an afternoon like this 30 years from now, it will seem indescribably nice.
And now it's happening without any effort at all.
Why shouldn't it?
If a person happened to be by himself, he might even cry.
Let's not be sad.
When I left the house, I was thinking only to talk to you and then go right back.
I was expecting you. Virtue's not a bad thing to wear, but it's cut for a big man.
We're still tripping on the cuffs. I never would have calmed down if I hadn't run into you. I love you, Hansi, like I've never loved another soul.
Let's not be sad. Maybe when we look back on an afternoon like this 30 years from now, it will seem ridiculous. And now it's also nice. The mountains are glowing. The grapes are hanging in our mouths, and the evening wind is stroking the cliffs like a little teasing kitten.
Scene 7. A clear November night. Withered leaves rustle on the trees and bushes. Tattered clouds are racing beneath the moon. Melchior climbs over the cemetery wall.
The pack won't follow me here. While they're combing through the brothels, I catch my breath and see where I stand. My coat torn in pieces and my pockets empty. The most harmless person could do whatever he wanted to me. During the day, I'll have to try and keep going in the woods. Oh, I knocked over a cross. The flowers didn't freeze until today. The ground is barren all around. In the land of the dead. Climbing out of that skylight wasn't as hard as walking through here. This is the one thing I wasn't prepared for. I'm hanging over the abyss. Everything has fallen away from me, vanished. Oh, I wish I'd stayed there. Why her and not me? Why not the one who's guilty? The mysteries of Providence. I would have broken rocks and gone hungry. What keeps me on my feet? One crime leads to another. I've been relegated to the swamp. Not enough strength to put an end to it. I wasn't bad. I wasn't bad. I wasn't bad. No mortal has ever walked on graves so enviously. I wouldn't have courage. Oh, if I could just go crazy this very night. I have to look over there to where the recent ones are. The wind whistles in a different key on every gravestone, a stifling symphony. The rotten wreaths are torn to pieces. They dangle on their long ribbons and clumps around the marble crosses, a forest of scarecrows. Scarecrows on every grave, each more ghastly than the others. High as houses, and the devils run for their lives. gold lettering has a cold clean. The weeping willow moans and trails its giant fingers over the inscription. Oh, a praying cherub, a tablet. The cloud is throwing its shadow over here. The way it rushes and owls, as if an army marching in the east is driving it higher and higher, not a star in the sky. A plot with holly around it. Holly. A little girl. Here rests in God Venla Bergman. Born May 5th, 1878, died of anemia October 28th, 1892. And I murdered her. I murdered her. Oh! I have nothing left but despair. I can't cry here. Out of here. Out!
Just a minute, Melchior. This is a rare opportunity. You have no idea how crucial the timing and location are.
Where did you come from?
From over there. You knocked over my cross. I'm by the wall. Give me your hand, Melchior.
You are not Mord Stiefel.
Give me your hand. I'm quite sure you'll be grateful. It will never be this easy again. We're meeting by a rare and happy chance. I came up specially.
You mean you don't sleep?
Not what you call sleeping. We sit on church steeples, on gables, wherever we want.
In torment.
For the fun of it. We skim past maypoles, past lonely forest chapels. We hover over the scenes of accidents, over public meetings, fairgrounds, parks. When we're inside people's houses, we crouch in chimneys and behind the bed curtains. Give me your hand. We don't fraternize with each other, but we see and hear everything that's going on in the world. We know that everything people do and strive for is stupid, and we laugh at it.
What good does that do?
What does it need to do any good for? We're no longer reachable for anything, neither good nor evil. We stand high, high above terrestrial concerns, each one of us for himself alone. We don't fraternize with each other because it's too boring for us. None of us have anything left to lose. In our infinite sublimity, we are as far from sorrow as from rejoicing. We're satisfied with ourselves, and that's what counts. We view the living with unspeakable contempt, to the point where we hardly even pity them. They amuse us with their little activities, because there really isn't anything to be pitied about a person who's still alive. We smile at their tragedies, each of us for himself, and make our own observations about them. Give me your hand. When you give me your hand, you'll fall over laughing at the feelings you're having as you give me your hand.
Doesn't that disgust you?
We're too sublime for that. We smile. I was standing among the mourners at my funeral. I was a first-rate entertainment for me. That's what sublimity is, Melchior. I wailed and then sneaked over to the wall to laugh until I ached. Our incomparable sublimity is truly the only point of view that makes all the garbage digestible. I'll bet they were even laughing at me before I made the leap.
I'm not interested in laughing at myself.
The living are truly not to be pitied for being alive. I admit I never would have guessed it either. And now it's incomprehensible to me how anyone can be so naive. Now I can see through the fraud so clearly. There's not a wisp of fog left. How can you even hesitate, Melchior? Give me your hand. In the snap of a neck, you'll be sky high above yourself. Your life is a sin of omission.
Can you forget?
We can do anything. Give me your hand. We can feel sorry for youth the way it takes its timidness for idealism, and for old age, the way its heart breaks with stoic superiority. We see emperors tremble over popular songs and street shysters shaking at the sound of the last trumpet. We ignore the comedian's mask and see the poet putting his mask on in the dark. We behold the contented man and his impoverishment, and in the man who labors and is heavy laden, we see the capitalist. We observe people in love and see them blush at each other, suspecting that they're deceived deceivers. We see parents bringing children into the world in order to be able to say to them, how lucky are you to have parents like us? And see children going out and doing the same thing. We can eavesdrop on our innocence in its lonely extremities of love. And on the two-bit whore reading Schiller, we see God and the devil making fools of each other. And we nurture in ourselves the absolutely unshakable conviction that both of them are drunk. And peace of mind and contentedness, Melchior. You only have to give me your pinky. You might be an old man before you have another opportunity like this.
If I accept Moritz and we seal it with a handshake, I'll be doing it out of self-contempt. I'm an outcast now. What gave me courage is buried in the ground. I no longer consider myself worthy of noble impulses, and I see nothing left that could stand between me and my destruction. I feel like the most loathsome creature in the universe.
Why are you hesitating?
A masked man enters.
You're shaking with hunger. You're in no condition to judge. Leave.
Who are you?
That will become clear. Get out of here. What business do you have here? Why aren't you wearing your head?
I shot myself.
Then stay where you belong. You're finished. Don't pester us here with your grave smells. It's unbelievable. Take a look at your fingers. It's starting to crumble.
Please don't send me away.
Sir, who are you?
Don't send me away, please. Let me be a part of things for a little while longer. I won't disagree with you about anything. It's so horrid down there.
Then why do you go on and on about your sublimity? You know it's all humbug, sour grapes. Why do you deliberately lie, you bogey? If it means so much to you, I don't care if you stick around, but be careful with the mumbo jumbo, my friend, and do me a favor and leave your rotting hand out of this.
Aren't you going to tell me who you are?
No. I suggest that you trust me. To begin with, I'd make sure you get out of here.
You're my father?
Wouldn't you recognize your dear father by his voice?
No.
Your dear father is, as we speak, seeking comfort in the strong arms of your mother. I'll open up the world for you. This temporary distress of yours is due to your miserable situation. It will seem ridiculous as soon as you've got a warm dinner under your belt.
Only one of them can be the devil. With all the things I'm guilty of, a hot dinner isn't going to give me back my peace of mind.
That depends on the dinner. I can tell you this much. The little girl would have given birth exquisitely. She was ideally built. It was the abortion methods of Mother Schmidt that killed her. I'll introduce you to people. I'll give you the opportunity to broaden your horizons in the most fabulous way. You won't miss a single interesting thing that the world has to offer.
Who are you? Who are you? I can't put myself in the hands of somebody I don't know.
You won't get to know me unless you put yourself in my hands.
You think so?
It's a fact. And by the way, you don't have any choice.
I can give my hand to my friend whenever I want to.
Your friend is a charlatan. Nobody smiles if they've got a penny left in cash. The sublime humorist is the most woeful, pitiable creature in creation.
Be that as it may, if you don't tell me who you are, I'm going to give the humorist my hand.
Well,
He's right, Melchior. I was exaggerating a little. Take advantage of him. Let him treat you. He may be masked, but at least there's something under the mask.
Do you believe in God?
depends on the circumstances.
Will you tell me who invented gunpowder?
Bertolt Schwartz, alias Konstantin Enklitzen, a Franciscan monk at Freiburg and Breisgau around the year 1330.
I wish he'd lost the recipe.
You'd only have hanged yourself?
What do you think about morals?
Hey, kid, am I your student?
How should I know? How should I know what you are?
Don't fight. Please don't fight. What's the point? What are we sitting here for? 2 living men and 1 dead one at 2 in the morning in a cemetery, if we're going to fight like a bunch of drunks. I expect it to be a pleasure and a privilege to attend these proceedings. If you're going to fight, I'll put my head under my arm and go away.
You're the same old hang-ringer.
The ghost has a point. One shouldn't forget one's dignity. Morals, I understand to be the real product of 2 imaginary quantities. The imaginary quantities are supposed to and want to. The product is called morals, and its reality cannot be denied.
I wish you told me that before. My morals were the death of me. It was because my parents that I picked up a gun. Honor thy father and mother, and that thy days shall be long. The scripture looked phenomenally silly in my case.
Don't delude yourself, my friend. Your mother and father would have died of that as little as you. In strict point of fact, they would have done their raging and storming simply for the good of their health.
That may be true as far as it goes. But I can tell you positively, sir, that if I'd gone ahead and given Moritz my hand just now, it would have been solely and exclusively the fault of my morals.
That's exactly why you're not Moritz.
I really don't think the difference is that essential. At least not so compelling that you couldn't have chanced to meet me too, Mr. Stranger. When I was trotting through the alders with the gun in my pocket.
You don't remember me? Even at that last instant, you were still standing between death and life, weren't you? Incidentally, in my opinion, this is really not the place to prolong such a far-reaching discussion.
Certainly. It's getting chilly, gentlemen. They dressed me up in my Sunday best, but I'm not wearing any shirt or underwear.
Farewell, Moritz. I don't know where this person is taking me, but he is a person.
Don't hold it against me that I tried to kill you, Melchior. It was for old time's sake. I'd spend my whole life in tears and lamentations if I could go out with you one last time now.
Everyone has his part in the end. You, the soothing awareness of having nothing. You, the evervading doubts about everything. Farewell.
Goodbye, Moritz. I truly appreciate you showing up again. We spent so many cloudless happy days together in 14 years. I promise you, no matter what happens now, even if my personality changes a dozen times in the coming years, no matter how good or bad things get, I'll never forget you.
Thank you. Thank you, dear one.
And if I ever get to be an old man with gray hair, maybe you of all people will be closer to me again than everyone I've spent my time with, my life with.
Thank you. Good luck on your journey, gentlemen. Don't let me keep you any longer.
Come on, boy.
Here I sit with my head on my arm. The moon covers its face, unveils itself again, and doesn't look the least bit smarter. So I'll return to my plot, straighten my cross, which that maniac kicked over so inconsiderately, and when everything's in order, I'll lie down on my back again, warm my bones on the decay, and smile.
Yay, thanks very much, everybody. That was really, really excellent.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, thanks very, very much. You guys did a really, really beautiful job, considering you've only had it for so long. I guess I kind of just want to start with asking you, like, what did you guys think? Was there anything that particularly stood out to anybody?
I just want to, like, sort of as you noted at the beginning, this is hilarious. Like, that last scene, I realized I was like, this is fucking ridiculous. It's absolutely hysterical. So that's what I was like, and it came out even more in reading it. Like, I started to notice when I was reading it earlier this week that it was kind of funny, but like reading it now, I was like, wow, this is a comedy.
I'm kind of familiar with the musical. I was not familiar with the play at all, and it was really fascinating. Because I know the musical is always staged. It kind of opens itself to be staged in whatever direction the director wants to take it. But with the play version, the amount of subtext that's in just like the text version of this story was like so fascinating. And I think it would even open even more doors putting this on stage versus the musical. Yeah, it's weird. It was like so specific enough, but yet broad enough to let the actors play with what's at hand. Yeah, so that was really cool. Leached out from
Yeah,
the text for me.
I really agree with that point too. I think something to like keep in mind in comparing the two also is, the Broadway musical, like it's going to be a commercial endeavor, right? So obviously there's themes that you can explore and ones that sell better than others and whatnot, and that doesn't make it a bad work at all. But yeah, like you said, the subtext, like how deep you could really, really dive into this one is incredible, I think. Any other thoughts?
I was just going to talk about you were saying, Andrea, how you were interested in their education, and we note how much education we need to be able to read this play.
Yeah.
There's a lot of references. Fabulous though. There are so many wonderful classical references and names that are unpronounceable and all of that, but really enriches it. So we noticed that, all right.
Especially that one lengthy monologue. Which character is that? Hanshin? Is that who was the?
Yeah.
I found that was like specifically the one place in the play where I kind of like was so overwhelmed by the language and the heightenedness that I kind of lost even what we were talking about. Compared to, and nothing to do with your reading of it, of course.
Okay,
it was just
good.
like you said, so many references, and it was so much more heightened than a lot of the other, because most of this play I think you can get a good sense of what it's about even just a first pass, and I'm sure there's way more to dig into, but I just thought it was interesting how it had those moments of like super heightened language.
Just to piggyback off that too, like it was lovely seeing the generational divide, like in when the kids were speaking, and even with these large grandiose references, like it was very meditative to listen to them, and you really wanted to listen to them. And then you saw, like the older professors, parent types, they have like a bit sharper way of speaking, and it's kind of more like black and white, cut and dry. Whereas like the language of the kids was rich and colorful, and that really came out in the text version of the story too.
Yeah. On that note, and I think it comes with what I mentioned earlier about like having that kind of like respect for like children is, yeah, like the words, the lines that he gives these characters, these such young people, I think is super respectful, because I don't think it, like, while there are tons of absurd and big things like in this play, I do think that kids can have thoughts that are that complex. I do think that they can have, and like these aren't even like they're 15-ish, right? Like they can hold all these things within them. They might not have the same flowery language or whatever as these characters do, but like those feelings are still just so real. And to hear children expressed so well, I think is amazing. That's one of the things I really, really like about this play.
The other thing to note is how much our expectations in education have changed. because it's not just this play and it's not just this writer. If we look back at textbooks from schools, end of the 1800s, early 1900s, the expectation of what a student could take on was much higher than it is today. So I think you're absolutely right. Those kids are perfectly capable of having some of those bigger thoughts. Yeah.
Well, even now, Jeanette, I think, in terms of what I was doing in school compared to what I'm teaching in school and what the kids are allowed to, how much homework they're allowed to have, or what the expectations are. I mean, we're just dumbing it down further and further and further and further. It's ridiculous.
I think I see that a lot too. Well, I work in a bookstore when I'm not doing theater things. Even just like the kind of like literature like we give our kids, and like comparatively to like what I was reading when I was like 10 or 12, compared to like the kind of stuff that comes out now. But even like my mom or friends who were like born in like the 80s or the 70s, like it's different, and there's still really, really good literature for children. And I pull on literature because it's like through our literature that we get so much of our language, right? And yeah, I don't know. I wish kids were given a bit more credit often, or that they were pushed in that direction a little bit more.
I think an interesting thing in that matter of how people speak to or address or assume intelligence in younger people is something that interests me. I happened to graduate high school very early and looked very much older. So I was fascinated by being addressed as a fellow adult, and them being very surprised when they found out. But the difference that people had, that shift that would be in their mind of, oh, I can't believe I had these conversations, that I talked this way with you when I didn't realize what your age was. It's very different the way that people address children and address adolescents and teenagers. And if they address them as adults, I think the disrespect that teenagers often struggle with, there's so much of them that they do still need to learn and grow up, but there's a whole lot of also being assumed as not able to handle it, incapable.
Well, so I thought that Melchior's mother was such a striking character to me. Just like the reasonableness, and I just seemed like a very much of an outlier of that, what you usually would expect from like a parental figure, just to hear someone so putting so much like faith and being so aware of like who their child is and giving them the benefit of the doubt in every way imaginable. It seemed kind of like refreshing, especially from a piece that's so old.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into one of the questions that I wanted to ask is, do you think any of the adults in the play are redeemable? Do you think they're all, so stuck in a certain way, so in line with society? Yeah, I don't know. Do you think they're redeemable, any of them?
I think I'm biased, but the mothers, I think, could be. I think Wendla's mother is like very much a victim of her own circumstance, and the society in which she grew up and the expectations that were put on her. And I don't know, but then that juxtaposed with Melchior's mother is like really interesting to see, like they kind of felt like two polar opposites. I definitely, I was also really struck by Melchior's mother, whereas Wendla's mother is like kind of not like, I don't want to dismiss her as anything, but like she is kind of a comic character like entirely, because it's like it's just so absurd. She just has no way of, like, she can't even allow her own brain to go there.
So if
It's
Wendla
very sad.
and Melchior's mothers are opposites in terms of opposite ideology expressed in parenthood in mothers, do we have that in fathers in the same respect? Do we see the two opposite kind of ultra, perhaps to a fault, too liberal take on parenthood versus too strict with the fathers? I don't recall a father figure that was on the liberal side.
No, I don't even think, or at least on, well, it's interesting to note just quickly on the note of fathers, like Benla doesn't even seem to have one, or at least there doesn't seem to be anyone in the picture there. So one could argue that Benla comes from, well, we obviously don't know the history there, but potentially like a broken household, like who don't know why he left, or if he left, perhaps he died or something like that. And I think that really makes a lot of, when you consider that, it I think makes her mom's character make even more sense in terms of like, she just wants her daughter's lives to go so well, right? Just keep them pure, keep them innocent, just get them married and on their way, like Ina, right? She seems to be very proud of her first daughter, and she just wants to get Benla there too. But I think you're right in terms of like father figures or male figures. I don't know if there is a more liberal or progressive one in the story.
I mean, it seems like Melchior's father at least genuinely is striving to like do what he believes is best, I guess, and it's just coming from a very like different frame of mind that the mother is coming from, but like ultimately ends up swaying her. So I mean, I guess it does make some moral sense to the both of them that like sending him to the reformatory is like the morally just thing to do, and that it will be what's truly best for him. Whereas it seems like Morris's father didn't even know how to handle his son and didn't know how to like approach him with any compassion, which is probably like a generational thing. You know, it's probably the way that they were raised by their parents, and yeah, it seems like he was really like breaking like this cycle by ending his life, which is kind of a maybe crazy way to look at it, but
I was just gonna, yeah, to speak to that too, like the idea of saying if they're redeemable, like I feel like the kids and the parents, they live in two totally separate worlds, like, right? And it's like there's only like, it sounds almost like pathetic, but you feel a sense of like sorrow for these parents too, because it's like um Alex, that is your name, right? Who played Morris? Yeah, like Alex was saying. Yeah, it's like that's how they were brought up. There's like a divide, just almost like a biological divide. I think that is the forefront that like starts at all of these like children parents relationships that will always be an obstacle. And then I think, like we talked about in the text, you just see that as the play plays on, like it is like almost two different worlds operating. And it's even sad with the Melchior's parents discussion. Like you can see them trying to like come to terms with each other, or trying to mesh in a little bit of like this new world, old world notion, but it's just like such a stale conclusion, you know, them coming to having the reformatory be sort of like the option. Like it, yeah, there's.
Did you have something you wanted to say, Alexis?
It's there, I mean, it just seems so like everything could have been avoided if everybody just talked to each other, right? Like, you know, if it seemed that the adults were so unwilling to hear what the kids had to say, what their thoughts were, to answer their questions, and not even just the parents. I mean, even with you know, the interrogation of Melchior, where every time he tries to say something, he gets shut down. You're supposed to be quiet. You're not allowed to say anything. So it's that if and I don't know why that is, if there's that assumption that kids don't know anything, or they're just being foolish, or you're not supposed to know that yet, or whatever, right? But it just seems to me that the big divide here is the communication, that the adults and the kids, the adults don't seem to have time to want to listen to what the kids are saying, or to answer their questions, or to get their thoughts on certain things. Whether it's they know better or what, I don't know. The kids don't seem to have any trouble talking to each other and educating each other, but that was an interesting divide to me, that you know, like, why couldn't the Gabors just go and talk to Melchior and say what happened? And maybe if Mrs. had told Wendla that, you know, how things work, then there's an education there, right? So, yeah, but such is the way still sometimes.
Yeah, that's the worst part, isn't it?
Yeah. Just talk to each other. So simple, but then we wouldn't have a play. So
I kind of feel like that can also translate over, like, in this case, it's sexuality that we're talking about in this play, but that can also translate into modern day between, like, adolescence and adulthood, talking about certain topic. Like, I feel like adolescents amongst themselves talk about many more topics together than adults will talk about together or to the kids themselves.
I feel like there'll always be this cycle where there's like the generation now recognizes that generation that came before them, sees their faults, tries to eradicate their faults with their fellow generation nows to make it better for the generations to come. But within all of this circle, the paving of the communication lines between both ends never fully flush. So it's like that's just like a common thread of life that I feel like is very present in this play.
I think it's interesting that Moritz felt that he could reach out to Mrs. Gabor when he wanted to leave town, and that she writes him a very clear, you know, response as to, I'm not going to help you, and this is why. And I mean, it's very well thought out, and it's not just a simple no. It's, you know, she considers what he has said. She tries to help him. Would it be helpful to talk to your parents? But I find it very interesting that he reaches out to her. I don't know why, but I think, yeah, her response to him was like probably the only evidence of adults and children talking, and even that was done through letter, like not through a verbal conversation. But I think she certainly was truthful with him and honest with him and thoughtful and, in her mind, reasonable. So
yeah, I think Moritz feels a lot of pressure. I think he mentions it even at one point, like when he's talking about either him failing or the other student, that the other student's parents hadn't given up everything for him to succeed. And so I think whether that pressure is real or imagined, I think Moritz feels that a lot of his struggles come from that expectation from authority, or at least his parents. And yeah, like we mentioned earlier, Skapor, Skapor seems to be the only adult who reasons or talks to the children. Like when she's asking whether or not they had read Faust yet, and she's like, oh, maybe that's not a good idea, but I trust you that you're old enough to be able to make these decisions, and no one else talks to them that way. One other thing that I found really interesting about this play within its own world is the play is very much set in a reality that like we're familiar with the same kind of rules and everything. It's realistic, I guess, in that way. But at the end, there enters out of nowhere a very supernatural character, this masked man, who apparently visits children right before they're about to, off themselves, and tries to convince them otherwise, and or something like that. So I guess like my questions there was like, I don't know, who do you think, like, was that person real? Do you think, why doesn't Moritz remember him? Do you have a suspicion as to who that being might have been?
It's interesting that the musical omits it entirely, and I think there was at some point an iteration of it where they did try and include that as a character as well. But it's just interesting how it's such like a memorable. I assume it's even more so if you were to see this play done. I'm sure that would be a very memorable character, and the fact, and iconic kind of, and it's interesting that the musical feels that like it's not essential to like the fabric of the piece, or at least in a musical adaptation.
I found that whole like last scene very jarring, and like it seemed to be so out of place in a way that really worked. I know that sounds weird, but like it really made it like punch, and you really got an idea of what was going on inside both Melkor's and Mort's head. And like that was like amazing to me. And I felt like the masked character was more of like almost a reflection of what was going on in the scene than a character itself, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's right, but that's how like I saw it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a right answer per se.
I think of it as we've entered territory that's so enormous. How are you going to present that? To continue in a sort of a naturalistic way in theatrical storytelling might seem reductive, right? So the only choice is to step it up to something fantastical, because we've entered a fantastical, in a way, dilemma. We've entered, we've encountered death. So I think it's perfect.
I almost remember too, the characters from the musical are a bit more archetypal in a sense of like Moritz was kind of like badass, like flippant, he goes through with the suicide, a bit edgier, deeper vibes than Melchior, like. But then it's funny because seeing Melchior as the character in this play and him having that moment of like regret, and like he actually does kind of go back and think, I did this to Venla, or like I'm a murderer, and he's admitting its fault. It's almost like, to me, the masked man, and the reason maybe that Moritz doesn't remember him is that Moritz was kind of had that like moral conscience already turned off, whereas this masked man, and the fact that it's a man, to me seemed like this is the last attempt of like instilling in Melchior like the tradition, the right way of doing things. It's like the last attempt of like man, or like the other generation, to like prevent him from becoming a Moritz or like becoming a Vendla. And again, it was interesting too, because this one character seemed to kind of toil with the two of them, and it was aggravating because I'm like, stop, they're friends, they just want to have a conversation, and like you come in here, and because for a second it seemed that they were their same age, but then I was remembered like the masked man. I was like, oh no, I think this possibly could be like that the parents and the
Because he thinks it's his
headmasters.
father at first, yeah.
Right. Like coming in to be like, I'm gonna save you, Melchior. Like you're not gonna be a Wendla or a Moritz. I don't know.
And I want to know that like I did some research on this play, like just casually, and apparently I think in the first English language production, Frank Wedekind, he played the masked man. So it's like, it's like it's just like it's almost just the playwright coming in and being, hey, let me get on in here. It's like, I don't know, this sort of this like third eye that's been watching the whole time and just needs to intervene.
Right.
That's a really interesting way of seeing it, and I didn't know that tidbit, but yeah, it's maybe the playwright coming in. Years ago when I did this play, I thought, and I don't know if I still stand by this interpretation of the masked man, but I thought he was very much like an angel of death. You know what I mean? I think this is kind of like his ministry, wouldn't be the right word, but kind of that, his job, right? Of like being that like last light for people, because he seems to have like a supernatural knowledge. Like, how does he know that Venla would have delivered the baby, and like how does he know everything that's would have happened, going to happen, could have happened, and all that other stuff? And yeah, and that was like just his job to like go around to like all these people with their last hope, like an angel of last hope, maybe.
Like even Melchior stumbling upon Venla's like grave and not having known about it, like it just feels like a huge dream sequence, which maybe that's like kind of obvious, but it just doesn't feel like it's necessarily literally really happening, but like maybe that's unimportant. I feel like they talk about dreams a lot in the play as well, and significant experiences they've had through dreams. So this kind of just feels like an extension of that, I guess.
I have to go. So I just want to say, and I don't want to stop your conversation, which is so fabulous, but just to say thank you again. It was great. And I'll get in touch with everybody later.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Okay.
Bye.
Morgan just slipped out, but I loved the more of the agency that's given to Elsa's character in the play than like in the musical. Wow, was her stuff like so visceral, and like talking about dreams. Like it just was really nice to have her like paint. In the musical, she's really much portrayed as like, oh, like a street rat, just kind of like shows up, says her thing, you know, is kind of like the glue behind the scenes. But then in this, like, we actually got like a very, like I've already said the word, but a visceral vignette of like the life she's actually living, or like the circumstances that she's actually been in. So that was just really wild and cool to see. Oh, Morgan's here. Hello. Sorry, I thought you left. I was like, wait, Ilsa's
I
gone.
shut my camera off for a second. Yeah, the character of Ilsa is really surprising and kind of a mystery to me. She's so different from all the other children. And there she's only in, one scene and then a very short one. There's so much there. Like, how did she get away? Like, what is the story of her family? They just like let her leave and stuff. Yeah. When you were talking about we were talking about liberal parents, perhaps her parents, like I feel like there's a whole other play just about her.
Yeah.
I kind of love that the musical gives her like the last word, kind of like she kind of leads the last song, which is a nice bookend that the musical has that the play doesn't really.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe that's just like necessary for like what a musical is, I guess. But yeah, I feel like that really highlights her character in a way that reading the play now, I was trying to like examine specifically her character and see like what is her deal? What did the creators of the musical take away from this play to get like this kind of cool ethereal character?
Because to me, like, unfortunately, all the kids, like, they do have some of their like parents' strings holding them back, whether they like it or not. But with Ilsa, I see her being like the example of like a classic, like, fuck it, I'm gonna like, you know, like be a free spirit and nothing's gonna hold me back. And yeah, like she's an example of the extreme opposite of what like the parents and teachers are showing as example, right?
For sure. I think keeping in mind, like, well, that she is like, so she seems to be the only child or young person in this play who completely breaks free of that society. One could argue, though, that it's almost to her detriment, because she seems like she's in a very unhealthy situation. It's like, it'd be very easy to read child sex trafficking into that. You know what I mean? Well, that's exactly it. And she even gets like locked up in this one guy's house for several days. So she has that agency. She's made that choice, but the play doesn't put it as like the right one either. You know what I mean? Which I appreciate, that it's not like, well, if everyone just went and did their own thing, right, we'd all be fine. It's so much more complex, and there's a whole host of other dangers that come with that, rewards and dangers that come with that.
Right.
Well, I'm sure we could talk so much more about this, but I also have to get going. So thanks very much. You guys really did a fantastic job with it.
Yay,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Yeah,
Have a good weekend, everyone.
You as well. Bye.
Bye.